and the Royals are Reggie Miller. They shouldn't have done that. It's the fourth quarter choke. That's what it is. Cleveland, you shouldn't have been talking smack about all the cheating at home. It's just crazy that the Royals can now cheat on the road.
Thank God they finally figured out to cheat on the road. How dumb have this Royals team been that they haven't been cheating on the road? Oh, man, it's about damn time they did it. It just, get somebody in there, find you somebody that can cheat home and the road. All right? And the Royals finally did that. Thank God. It is great, though, that all of the talk about the Royals going on the road and the Royals at home and winning and losing and what the records are, that the Royals have the best record in the division on the road. Remember, the Royals, they're only winning at home because they're cheating. Going on the road, they can't win because they're not cheating anymore. Oh, what's that, Cleveland? Oh, the Royals have a better road record than you. You've got a better home record than the Royals. Maybe you're cheating. Dumbasses. Love it. Oh, I love it. I have no idea if the Royals are going to win the division, but I know they're playing a playoff baseball. I mean, they are 6.5 games up with 29 to play. The Red Sox, if they were to surpass the Royals, I believe would need to go 23-6 if the Royals played 500 baseball. I'll find the actual specific Randy Gisarelli tweet because Randy did the math for me because he typically does that. He's the math guy.
Not noted as a math show, this show.
Well, I mean, we try.
You're in the zone. You're not in the math.
You could be in the math. Sometimes we're in the math. We try to make it as available as possible. Where's that Randy
We don't
tweet?
like math because Mike Matheny has math in it.
I never thought of it that way. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's as good as what the day feels like today. Here it is. If the Royals played 500 baseball the rest of the season, the Red Sox will have to go 22-9 to pass them. If the Royals simply play one of the toughest schedules in baseball in the American League remaining for the Red Sox, I'm not saying to go ahead and buy the playoff tickets. I'm just saying you can put them in the cart. They can be in your cart, okay? You may not even have to have the protection on there.
How does media passes work for playoff games? Is it the same thing? Because if so, I will be there.
I'm going to assume that you probably don't need to be asking that, Jack. I would assume the people that have been out there covering the Royals all year, the ones that would get a little tip of the cap to go out there and enjoy
they have the
that.
face scan now, is
like
that what
Jack,
it is?
or Todd, or Curtis, or Drake, the guys that have been out there covering the team.
Opening day, come on now. I go to the big events.
Like I said, like Jack, like Todd, like Drake, like K-Dog. Those are the guys that'll be out there covering the playoffs if they win the division or get the first wild card spot. If they win the division, they don't even, because they're 4.5 games up on Houston right now for the number 2 seed.
Yeah, 4.5.
So 4.5 games up on Houston for the number 2 seed, which would give you a bye. If you win your division, if you're the number 3 seed or the number 1 wild card, you would host all 3 of the wild games in the wild card. There will not be a home playoff game for the Royals. So that's why winning the division is so crucial. And that's why already having won the season series against the Guardians is crucial. No matter what they do against the Guardians the rest of the way. Obviously, it matters because head-to-head, and that's who they're battling with, along with the Twins, to win the division. But if it comes down to a tie at the end of the year, they don't have the season series against the Twins or the Red Sox, but they got it against the Guardians. So a tie at the end of the year with the same exact record, the Royals will win the division. If it's the same thing with the Twins, they will lose the division. I don't think they'll be the 3rd wild card spot battling with the Red Sox tied. I don't think that matters anymore.
Yeah.
Because it would take a
Herculean effort.
Yeah. It would take a monumental collapse for the Royals along with the Red Sox playing out of their mind. And that's not typically what you're going to see in baseball. The Royals, I believe, are going to complete one of the greatest turnarounds in Major League Baseball history. From losing 106 games a year ago to not only making the playoffs. First of all, that would be, they're going to complete that in making the playoffs, going from a 100-loss team to making the playoffs. But 100-loss team to maybe a 90-win team. The first ever 100-loss team to win the division the very next year. No team has ever done that before. And the Royals right now are leading the division after losing 100 games last year. And college football gets underway tomorrow night. Chiefs have cut down to a 53-man roster. There's certainly some things to talk about with that. They make a move for Cameron Thomas. I want to weigh in a little bit more on that. The Chiefs go 26 on offense, 24 on defense.
Yeah.
We talked about if they went an odd number, if they went not even 25-25, that we thought it would be 26 on defense because of all the different injuries. Instead, they went the other way, 26 on offense and 24 on defense. That's interesting, and I think certainly worthy of conversing about. The Untold series on Netflix, I finished up the Connor Stallions one last night in the rain delay, so that was nice. Got a little rain delay.
I was
got
learning
to
about
watch
Kevin
the Untold
Youkilis.
Connor Stallions. Kevin Youkilis, the Greek god of walks, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Hi, Kadog. Yep, will you turn
K-Dog's
mic
here.
3 on
He's
here for
waltzed in
for
here.
Curtis?
I don't have a headset. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
I just want to assuage anyone's fears out there about the playoff coverage. If they do make the postseason, I will not be at the ballpark because they are 37-22 at home this year when I'm not there, and they are 4-6 when I am there.
So we're gonna have Sterling go in
yeah.
Curtis's
It
stead.
was so bad that after they lost last Tuesday, we get on the elevator to go downstairs. Annie Rogers gets in the elevator. She sees me. She goes, "Dude." I'm like, I know.
She got in the elevator.
They've lost 5 of the last 6 times I've been there.
Okay, you're not allowed to go out to the K
You
anymore.
can have my seat. Anyone can have my seat.
Congratulations. Yes.
Yes.
Moving
That's
on
great.
up.
That's just great. Curtis gets in the elevator. Andy Rogers looks over and goes, "Oh, that's why." Okay, now I know why they ended up losing. It's because of Curtis. All right.
Call me
so
Curtis Mayfield.
Yeah.
I'll be moving on up. There we go.
That's perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be Sterling. It just can't be Curtis. So we figured that out. It doesn't mean we know who's going to fill in for Curtis. We just know that he is no
good call.
longer
Dylan.
allowed.
Dylan.
He's
That's
not on the
fine.
roster sheet anymore.
Let's go with Big D. Yeah, that's right.
Whoa,
You know what? He was released.
whoa. Pause.
Dylan going out and covering the Royals. So Curtis has been released. He's put on waivers. Another playoff team can claim him. That'd be great.
Jordan Lyles.
That'd be great if another playoff team claimed Curtis to go and cover the team for them.
Curtis won't make it through the waiver wire. You're going to have to trade for that guy. You're going to have to give up a 7.
It's
a real
Not-
Cam Thomas.
No.
It's
In
a real
typical
Cam
Royals
Thomas.
fashion, someone's going to pick him up, and he'll go 6-0 for some other team that he goes to watch in the
That's
postseason.
former Royals fashion. In typical
Former Royals fashion.
Old Royals regime. New Royals regime has them with a bullpen that's turned around. Lucas Erceg has been awesome. Paul DeYoung is hitting home runs. We'll see about Lorenzen and how serious that is, but Lorenzen was playing and pitching phenomenally since coming over from the Rangers. Michael Wacha and the Royals have been on fire when he's been on the mound. Just the move, Lugo all year long. I know he struggled as of late, but just the moves that J.J. Piccolo has made this offseason and the trades have continued to work out. And this team in the spot that they are with a really nerve-wracking approximately 5 minutes last night where my heart was in my throat, my stomach was churning, and Bobby Witt's hand was being looked at a little bit too long.
Yeah.
All right, a little bit too long for you to keep because at that point you're like, all right, Bobby hasn't just shaken it off and said I'm good.
Each finger.
I mean, each one he's looking at it, going through each little part of the finger, and you can almost see Bobby's hand shaking. Like you could see Bobby's hand shaking, and I'm like, he's in pain, okay? And I was just like, I'm sitting here watching him. I'm going, please stop looking at his hand because I'm afraid at any moment he's going to wince, and he's gonna walk the other way. The dugout in the background, what a great scene that a picture that was, a shot in the background. Every single Royals player was just staring because everybody in the ballpark was thinking the same thing. Royals dugout, Royals executives, Royals fans holding their breath, Cleveland fans cheering. Please be here. Cleveland's dugout. Oh, that would suck if he's hurt, but it'd be nice if he's hurt. Oh, no, he's hurt. Oh, that's too bad. They were rooting for it.
It's the Drake when Kevin Durant's walking off in the finals, and he's really upset about Kevin Durant leaving when they're playing the Raptors.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, they were all waiting and like, oh, no.
Said he leaned into it, too. The drunk-ass fans that were up there right by the Bally booth.
Those were some really obnoxious fans.
Dude, very, Very obnoxious fan. Well, they're Cleveland fans. What do you expect? I mean, they live in Cleveland. What else are you going to do?
Their whole slogan, Cleveland's slogan is "At least we're not Detroit."
That's right. I mean, after the Guardians blow this, they got to go watch the sexual predator be their quarterback. So, I mean, what do they have to root for? You know what I mean? What?
I'm thinking.
The
Okay,
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'll give him that. But you know
You're
what?
a music guy.
You know what? Iron Maiden's not even. Iron Maiden's not even in it. So even Cleveland messes up the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Congrats!
I don't think they're in charge of seeing who's in it. Just hosted there.
It's pretty cool. I've been, but it's pretty cool. But the fact that Iron Maiden's not in it, I'm gonna blast Cleveland.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, you can tell how excited everybody is waking up today with how this team has played. And I talked about it on Tuesday after they swept the doubleheader. Sometimes it's about when you play a team, not necessarily the team that you're playing. And the game that was cashed early June, the Guardians were on a heater, and the Royals were struggling at that time. And that game got postponed to a time where the Guardians are struggling and the Royals are now on a heater. That matters. I mean, that's a one-game swing. Maybe they win that game on that Wednesday. Maybe they don't. They did win Thursday to split that two-game series is all it was. But maybe that was just to avoid a sweep on that Thursday. Like, who knows what could have happened there. We might be talking about the Royals now. Hey, now they're only one game out. Now they're only one. They're so close, they're only one game out. Who knows? But they sweep the doubleheader. They take care of business. They take care of business last night. And what's really interesting about the game and the way that the teams are going, when that rain delay happened and those teams came back from the rain delay, only one team wanted to be there. Guardians wanted nothing.
It's a good point
about that. And they're at home. They're in their comfortable clubhouse. Royals are in the visiting clubhouse waiting out that rain delay. Guardians are in their own clubhouse, their own video games or whatever is at their locker. And they wanted nothing to do with being back out there. The Royals bullpen came out 15 up, 15 down, errors by the Guardians, passed balls, poor plays, throwing to the wrong base. They didn't want to be there last night. And that's how the Royals took not only had the lead, but then added on to where you didn't have to use Lucas Erceg last night, which is great because you may need him today.
Yeah.
He can go extended if he needs to.
You can go two if you need him to.
But you also understand that you're in a stretch of 19 games in 18 days. So because of the doubleheader, like the next day off is like September 5th, I think, is next Thursday. So if you don't have to use Erceg for multiple innings, that'd be great because maybe then he'd be available tomorrow against Houston. But take care of business today. If Erceg has to go out there for an inning and 2/3, then damn it, do it. Get the win. You're up by a game.
Worry about tomorrow.
Exactly. But it was nice to not have to have Erceg be used last night because now he could be available for an extended stretch if need be because he hasn't pitched in since Monday. So in a couple of days, he gets the save on Monday, in the first game. But that's what was that's the sort of the importance of adding on. And it's just fascinating. That team was leading the division by a game. They're at home. They're down by 1. The Royals bullpen is coming in. Carlos Hernandez was in for Lorenzen. But, the Royals bullpen has to then take over. And they didn't want to be there.
No.
The Royals did. And people talk about, momentum's only as good as your next day starting pitcher. To a degree. I don't necessarily disagree with that premise, but maybe it's not momentum, but it could simply be how you feel when you go to bed, how you feel when you wake up, and your excitement level to get back out to the park. Because leaving the ballpark last night, I think there's at least one team that couldn't wait to get back out there today. I don't know that there are 2 teams that left that ballpark that couldn't wait to get back out there today. Now, the Royals may go out there and get shelled. Who knows?
Yeah.
That may happen because it's baseball. But it's not because the Royals leave the ballpark holding their heads down and not feeling like they're enjoying playing baseball right now because the Guardians didn't look like they were having fun playing baseball last night. They didn't want to be there. The Royals were having fun playing baseball last night, except for when they, threw at Bobby Witt Jr. again and hit him, and nobody has worn one yet.
I'm going to talk about that in just a second because I think that's really interesting as far as the non-repercussions for hitting the superstar player. One,
Especially in the damn hand.
I was very glad that Bobby was able to stay in the game.
Yeah.
The very next half inning, he had a ground ball. I'm like, okay, let's see how he handles this. And then he ripped a double down the line that was just absolutely torched. I go, okay, he's fine. Today's maybe the more worrisome day as far as the swelling, the adrenaline that now that has worn off. We will see. But I'm going to give a huge shout out to the Royals bullpen because anytime we rip on them, it's for due cause. But you got to give credit where credit is due. And they came in one after another and found a way to get it done. Lorenzen went out. Carlos Hernandez was pretty good early on, I thought, the first inning, maybe the first inning and a half. And then he seemingly got tired. Yeah. He was getting up there in pitch count for him. I thought Q maybe left him in a little too long, but he found a way to get out of it.
Trying to extend the game.
You had to do what you had to do.
Yeah.
And I'll tip my cap to Carlos. James MacArthur, I don't know if he's back or not because I don't want to say he's back on a white horse riding in, but damn did he look good. This is old MacArthur. This is 22 pitches, 17 strikes, no worry of a walk, 4 strikeouts in 2 innings.
Yeah.
MacArthur was back. That was the most crisp he has looked in a while. Schreiber, we have talked about this a lot ever since he's come back from the IL. This is April Schreiber. This is healthy Schreiber. And then Stratton kind of gave a couple of hard hit balls, but again, it was a 5-run game. He got out of it.
Yeah, he is what he is.
You know, it was interesting when Michael Lorenzen left that game. I think it was a doom and gloom scenario because the Royals only got 5 outs from him before he left with the hamstring strain. The way I looked at it, though, was because of the way the Royals swept the doubleheader and because they were already up 2-0, and here comes Carlos Hernandez, I think the feel from most of the fan base was, oh, no, now we need 7 1/3 from our bullpen, and most of our high-leverage guys are not going to be available. So you need big-time innings from Carlos Hernandez. You need big-time innings from Chris Stratton. You probably need Sam Long to go back out there. You need Schreiber to work a little bit. But the way I viewed it, and MacArthur as well, the way I viewed it was that Cleveland was the team that, probably had a tighter view of this. They were a little bit more tense because Lorenzen leaves. They had already lost the first 2 games, and it was, okay, we have to come through now. Everybody has to start hitting. And the later that game got, even with the rain delay, like once Carlos Hernandez struck out, was it Rocchio? I think that was up there when it was 1st and 3rd, and he got out of that jam that Lorenzen had. When he struck out, it immediately put that pressure back on Cleveland of, they're not even using their best guys right now, and you're still down 2-0. And the later that game gets, the tighter they got. And then when the rain delay happened and they came back out, it was 15 up, 15 down. It was clear that once MacArthur had the stuff that he had, it just got tighter and tighter and tighter for them because they knew the Royals were right on their heels of the division. But it's clear they are playing in a different league in this series, at least so far. Taking the first 3 and the way that they have, there's really only been one time that Cleveland had a lot of momentum, and it was all the way back in Game 1 of that doubleheader. But they blew that 2-0 lead. They had a 3-0 lead off Alec Marsh, but that lead was gone 2 innings later. Yep. And you kind of felt like the Royals, with the way they were hitting Logan Allen in Game 2, they were going to have a really good chance to take the lead again. And yesterday, I think that might have been, to me, the most impressive game that they had because, or at least in this series, because you lose Lorenzen so early, and the bullpen has been such an issue at least all year long, and you had to rely on guys that either just came up from Omaha or had lost that trust a month ago, like a James MacArthur. And the way they all looked, Schreiber, I believe this is the healthiest he's been all season long. His velo's up, his movement's good, he's throwing strikes. It looks like 2022 John Schreiber in Boston, where he was their fireman. He was not what Lucas Erceg is for the Royals, but he would come in a lot of big-time situations. And the fact that's what the bullpen looked like. Going up against the best bullpen in baseball, which has been a disaster against the Royals in 9 games this year, it's now giving the confidence of, man, not only the Royals hot, but there's a reason they have a better chance now to win the division than Cleveland, because Cleveland is seeing the effects of when your rotation can't work deep into games. The Royals are probably hoping for the bullpen to hit a stride like this because they can get rested, because they've got a rotation that can go 5, 6, 7 innings from almost every single guy, 1 through 5 in the rotation, unless they get hurt like Michael Lorenzen did last night. But to have Carlos Hernandez, Daniel Lynch in Game 2 of the doubleheader have outings like that That's the difference. And you winning this division and maybe falling a few games short of it. And, I don't think Cleveland wants to come to Kansas City next week, considering the way that all 9 of these games have gone, because the 2 losses the Royals had a 5-0 lead, and it was the weird foul pole home run game.
Yeah.
So they had 2 really good chances to win those 2 games as well.
This is, to erase a deficit in a division the way the Royals have, you need help from the team you're chasing too, unless you just play out of your mind. Because June 25th, they were 10 games out. It's August 28th, and they've erased 10 games against the Guardians. And the Guardians had the best record in baseball at that time. The Royals have gone 32-20. The Guardians have gone 24-32. The Guardians, since August 2nd, when they had a 6-game lead over the Royals, they have gone 8-16 in that time. Yeah. I mean, part of it is the Guardians. And it's not to take anything away from the Royals, because the Royals, went in there and took care of business. And the bullpen, like you guys were talking about, was the difference in this series. The Guardians' bullpen, the 2 bullpens pitched almost the exact number of innings. 16 innings for Cleveland, 16 2/3 for Kansas City. Cleveland's bullpen gave up 11 earned runs. The Royals so far have given up 2. And they've outscored the Guardians by 11. It's 9-run differential in the bullpen alone. If you told me back in June or July that a 4-game series, the first 3 games of those 4, the Royals bullpen is going to have to pitch 16 2/3 innings against the Guardians bullpen. One gives up 11 runs, the other one gives up 2. It would have been an obvious answer that the Royals bullpen gave up 11 runs.
That MacArthur figured it out. And that Daniel Lynch had a 3-inning save. Yeah,
right.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly. That Carlos Hernandez came in and was striking guys out.
Well, he gave up one of the runs now.
That's
so.
fine. One of the runs. Bubic gave up one of the runs.
That's fair.
They got a 1.08 ERA and a .78 whip, whereas the Guardians have a 1.4 whip with their bullpen. And we talked about if this is their bullpen wearing down, the top 16 players in all of baseball in appearances out of the bullpen, 5 of them are in the Guardians bullpen. 5 of the top 16 in appearances. And the Royals are able to get away with winning these first 3 games when Cole Reagans and Michael Lorenzen combined for 5 2/3 innings. Combined in 3 games in 2 days. Like, you have to. Matt Quatrero said after game 1 on Monday, when they had to come in and bring different, and he said no, that who came in for Cole Reagans on Monday? It was MacArthur for 1, then Bubic for 1 1/3, then Schreiber for 1 2/3, and Ursig.
Yeah. And
he was asked something along the lines of, MacArthur comes in, the way you use your bullpen, is that sort of part of the plan, or you have to adjust? And he was like, no, we had to adjust. Reagans, just wasn't as pitch efficient. A lot of times he'll give up a couple runs and then he'll go 7. So plans for the game, we had to change. That's game 1 of 4 games in 3 days. And you immediately had to throw in your bullpen and change what plans you might have had for that day. Game 3, the very next day, your starter goes out there and gets injured in the 2nd inning. And now you've got to adjust again on the fly. And they did. And it's one thing and this is where, there's dual credit. It's not just, we talk about the dual criticisms.
Sure.
That, Quatrero went to the bullpen and he put that guy in. What are you doing? Well, that guy also needs to do his job. Mm-hmm. So this is dual credit, where Quatrero was pulling the right strings, pushing the right buttons, and the players were coming through. He put MacArthur in, and MacArthur was as sharp as we've seen him all year. He was breaking off the curve. Stephen Kwan, had no chance on a pitch that was going to hit his foot, and he swung through it. That guy was leading at the All-Star break, the American League in batting average. So it's about making the right decisions, but those guys also have to come through and pitch to. If he goes to Carlos Hernandez and Hernandez gives up double, single home run, well, what are you going to do? Lorenzen got hurt. You've got to find a way to get, wave the white flag. This
they
is the
had
game
an
you give up.
excuse. They had one, and they didn't use it.
And Carlos Hernandez deserves credit for how he pitched, because he has often been, certainly by me, criticized for how he hasn't come through in situations. And he did. So it's a Royals team that's clicking right now. against a Guardians team that is not, and keep a struggling team struggling. That's the mission for today with the Royals, who have a guy on the mound that they have now won 8 straight games with Michael Wacha on the mound. I mean, this has been a Michael Wacha. I think I heard the stat earlier today with Stephen St. John. The last time Wacha gave up more than 3 runs was in May.
Wow.
The last time Wacha left a game giving up more than 3 runs in that game was in May.
Was it I'm trying to remember in that St. Louis series, was that 3 earned and 5 total runs or something like that?
It was unearned.
Let me look it up.
I feel like it was unearned because then I'm thinking it has to be that. Would it not be that game against the Rangers? That was the last time Michael Wacha to me looked bad at Kauffman Stadium against the Rangers. He got tagged for like 6 or 7 in 2 innings. But since that game, he's been arguably the best pitcher in the rotation for the Royals.
Cardinals, it was 4 runs, 3 earned.
3 earned,
so,
okay.
So 4, which is the first time since May 4th that he's left with. There's been one time. That's the only time since May 4th against the Rangers that he's left the mound with more than 3 runs given up. 2-0-2. These are the working from Philadelphia back towards the 7th, back towards May 4th.
Okay.
These are the earned runs he's given up. 2-0, 2-2, 2-3, 0-3-1, 1-1, 2-2, 2-2, 1-2. It's been Michael Wacha. I mean, he started off rough.
Yeah.
Had a few rough outings, 5 earned runs, 4 earned runs, 7 earned runs. Like, well, thank God they got Lugo. You know, you hit on one of them at least.
Hey, you get 1 out of 2.
Michael Wacha's been brilliant since then. I mean, I'm going to look it up right now. He's got a 2.4 ERA in that time. That's 16 starts. That's a 2.4 ERA in 16 starts.
He is exactly who the Royals need to have on the mound because the bullpen has been used a lot in this series. Yeah. You need a guy who's been consistently. I'm not saying that it's unheard of. If he gets shelled, it happens to everyone. But on paper, this is who the Royals need. They need a guy who can go out, throw a lot of innings, and other good news, Bobby Witt Jr. is in the lineup playing shortstop, batting second.
Okay, great.
Again,
Thank God.
I didn't know if he's going to DH today or what the question might be, but in the lineup, batting second at shortstop.
Well, Matt Quattrero, I'll just paraphrase what he said. We had the clip to play, but I'll just paraphrase because he said that, they had to go get x-rays. And my response was, no, you don't need x-rays. Don't worry about it. You don't need x-rays on Patrick Mahomes' ankle. Don't worry about it. He doesn't want x-rays. Don't give him x-rays. He doesn't want, listen to your leader. He doesn't want x-rays. Put him back in the game, Andy. Why are you risking x-rays? He'll play on a broken foot. I don't care. I just don't want to know. Don't get x-rays on Bobby. They were negative. Thank you for getting the x-rays. Okay, good. Now we know. We feel better. He's in the lineup. X-rays negative for Bobby Witt Jr. All good to go. Someone should wear one today.
Well, no, it's positive because they're not.
X-rays came back clean.
I know. I always laugh at the negative versus positive.
Yes.
Like
the X-rays were negative, which is a positive.
Yeah.
Well, the X-rays are positive, which is a negative. I'm confused. The X-rays were clean, which is a positive, and Bobby Witt's back in the lineup playing shortstop. And if the Royals have this one in the bag, I need someone to wear one for the Guardians. Then they will head to Houston for 4 games before returning home for a homestand next week against the Twins and the Guardians. That'll be a fun homestand. I have a feeling the K will be rocking next week. I do. I think the K Friday night was awesome. You could tell by the TV broadcast. Sunday was hot as hell.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it looks. We were there, but they have those 2 sections in the lower tank.
Yeah.
The lower section was almost empty. So I don't know what it looked like on TV.
Yeah, I know because everyone was underneath the.
The upper section was packed.
Yeah, I saw
hardly
that.
any seats available up there because it was in the shade. So if it was on TV, it may have looked like, wow, there aren't many people in the crowd right behind home plate. They were all in the level underneath the overhang, which is where we were. Those weren't our seats, but that's where we sat.
Yeah,
our seats were up top. We weren't sitting up top. We were baking, so we were like, we walked around the concourse,
just hanging
looked
out.
around, saw a row that had like 6 seats open, walked right down there. I saw which row it was. It was LL or something, and I say to Everett, and I look at it and go, LL is our row, Everett. He walks down. Like, yep, it's right there.
Did he say Cool J? Because that would have been really awesome.
That would have been great. He didn't do that. We'll do it next time, though. You got to play it off. And then we sit down, and my son, he goes, Daddy, I thought you said our tickets were up top. Shut up! Shh. Shush. Shush your mouth.
And then you go, Mama
Shush.
said knock you out.
Yes. Shush. I'm going to knock you out. Don't call it a comeback, son, okay? Our tickets have been here for years, all right? This is where we're sitting.
We're hanging with our peers.
Hey, keep that down, okay? Come on. It's hot outside, okay? We've been out in the little K, and riding the carousel.
Yeah, but kids don't get hot, so they don't know this thing. Kids don't get hot.
Oh, they were hot. They were hot. They were ready. They didn't want to sit out in the sun either. They were excited to sit in the shade. That's why everyone was like, I thought our seats were up top. Shut up, son. Narc. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Michael Lorenzen left the game early. Here's Matt Quattrero weighing in on what has been a really good trade for the Royals, bringing in Michael Lorenzen and his part-time job with the Royals away from his full-time job being strongest man in the world and the power lifter. Here's Matt Quattrero weighing in on Michael Lorenzen's injury update.
We know it's a hamstring. He's flying back early in the morning to get an MRI so we can find out. We think it's mild, but, doubtful that he'll be able to pitch in 5 days, but we'll have to wait till tomorrow.
And did that happen when he was covering first base?
Yeah, when he stretched to try to complete the double play, he just kind of landed awkwardly and, whatever you would call it, tweaked it, pulled it, whatever.
When you are having that conversation with him out there on the mound, is he trying to just work through it? What are those conversations like?
Yeah, I think initially he was trying to figure out not what it was, but how bad it was, and you saw him kind of gingerly throw the first warm-up pitch, then he got a couple little more intensity on it, but then as he pitched to Thomas, I think he aggravated him. He's going for a strikeout there. He probably ramped up a little too much.
Had they to do it over again, I think they would have taken him out of the game immediately and not let him pitch anymore because he may have hurt it worse by pitching more. I don't know the last time a starting pitcher has left a game with a hamstring tweak or strain and didn't go on the IL.
Yeah.
Like he left the game holding his hamstring, and I'm like, well, we're not going to see him for 15 games. That's a 15-day. Pitchers have to be on 15-day IL. He's not going to – I'm with Quattrero. He ain't going to make a start in 5 days. That would be a miracle. Plus, his hamstring being pulled is not like our hamstring being pulled. There's a lot of muscle in his hamstring to pull.
You can't pull fat.
That guy is freaking ripped, man. I also – look, I understand, I don't want it to sound like, victim shaming in that he was injured, but I also do wonder, what was the point of the stretch when the runner was already past first base? The dude had already stepped on the bag and was 2 steps back, and then he stretched out. It was almost like he was like, hey, I'm a first baseman, too. I can show you that I can stretch out. I don't know, man. If it was a little bit of a I don't want to say hot dog. Again, I don't want to –
Sure.
I don't want to make it feel like I'm blaming him for his injury. But there was no need to stretch on that when the runner had already passed first base.
You're not G-Man Joy. There's no reason for you to try and do the full-on splits out there.
Yeah.
He's safe.
Yeah, right. And he didn't hurt it on the stretch. He hurt it when he started to lose his balance, and you can see his left leg hamstring almost flinch a little when he started to fall. And you're like, oh, that's where it was, because he immediately then held it. And I'm like, well, he should come out of the game. Then he stayed in. I'm like, okay, all right, maybe it's all right. Oh, he's got a strikeout. Okay, he's pitching all right. Then that next pitch, you're like, oh, well, yeah, so he's going to be on the IL. So that's unfortunate because he's been pitching really well. But also, part of that trade was to add depth because we were worried, man, if somebody goes down, who's going to step up in their stead? Well, we know Alec Marsh can do it. Can he do it as well as Michael Lorenzen's been doing it? Hopefully close to that. I mean, he wasn't doing it as well as Michael Lorenzen's been doing it before Alec Marsh got sent down, before they made the trade. But he pitched just fine on Monday, coming back up. And when they make the decision that, we have made the following roster moves, that Michael Lorenzen has been, placed on the 15-day IL. Hasn't happened yet. I'm just saying when. We'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they don't have to, and it's just very, very mild. But then you'll see Alec Marsh placed in that 5th spot, and it gives them a little bit of breathing room from then saying, all right, you got a Johnny Holstaff this game when Michael Lorenzen's spot comes up because you don't have an obvious candidate to fill in because it ain't Daniel Lynch and it's not Chris Bubich. And if it was Alec Marsh that got injured, or somebody else, and you're like, okay, well, now what? Now who's doing that? So at least they do have that move for Michael Lorenzen, that they have somebody that can fill in that spot. They make the move for Urseg, that they have somebody that can help out when Hunter Harvey went down. Okay, well, Hunter Harvey's supposed to be the guy that Urseg has been. Well, you make the move for Urseg. Now you've got a couple of guys. Well, Hunter Harvey went down. Hopefully he'll be back up soon. We'll see, But now Lorenzen is hurt with the hamstring, and maybe he'll miss one start and make the start after that. We'll see.
How many pitches did Alec Marsh throw? I'm trying to. They're trying to ramp him
78
back.
his last outing in Omaha.
7 pitches, 6 base runners.
That was more than I expected. Was 87 because I was wondering if you're going to have to almost stack. Mm-hmm. Like, is it a stack where it's like 4 innings with Marsh and you try and go 2 with Daniel Lynch?
I think you go in the game when Marsh is pitching and say, our plan is from the 5th inning on. If he gets through 5, great. Then we will adjust our plan. But we've got to make a plan because he didn't get through the 5th in that game. It was 4 2/3 with 87 pitches. But if he gets through 5, great. Now we can adjust from there. But we go in with the plan of thinking somebody may need to come in the 4th inning, or somebody may need to come in to begin the 4th inning, or hey, you know what? Somebody starts the 5th. Great. He made it through 4 innings, and boom. Now somebody or you know what? What a great game. Got through 6, and now he hands the ball over to the bullpen, and they need 9 outs. Awesome. But I think you plan for needing more arms that day, and then adjust accordingly if you don't. While he's maybe ramping back up. But you're right, 87 pitches. I didn't think it was that much.
Yeah.
But
it feels like they could get a little bit creative, too, with maybe using Daniel Lynch as an opener or Carlos Hernandez as an opener. I think what's interesting about Alec Marsh with that first inning ERA where he just can't seem to pitch well in the first inning, the danger you run, though, is it the first inning or is it the first inning he just goes out there?
Right. I mean, that's a good point because is it the first inning that he's trying to stretch out and pitch 5 or 6 innings?
Yeah.
Or is it just the first inning on the mound, whether he's a 1-inning max guy or trying to get 5 or 6 innings, he just struggles when he gets on the mound that first inning?
And you're hoping that Michael Lorenzen misses, let's say, 3 starts. Hamstrings are just such a bad injury to have if you're a pitcher. I mean, any injury to a pitcher is bad. I think at this point you are hopeful that he returns at the very end of September and that he's 100% and he's healthy and he's ready to go for a playoff push. However, if he is your 5th starter, he's likely not starting any of those playoff games unless it was that best of 5. And who knows how the Royals would handle a game 5 of the ALDS if they got there. Would they just say, hey, our 5th starter's due up, we're going to go there? Or would they go to Cole Reagan's on short rest, or maybe he can give you 5, then you turn it over to your best bullpen guys? That's something that at least, it's not like one of the top 3 guys went down where now you are moving somebody up to be your game 3 starter. I mean,
right.
I don't want to say anybody, getting banged up in the rotation is a good thing, but if Michael Wacha went down, and let's say you're in a wild card series, you don't win the division, game 1's Reagan's, game 2's Lugo, Game 3 is Brady Singer, he's been great this year, but would you rather have Walker in an elimination game?
Yes.
Or would you rather have Brady Singer? And that's where with Lorenzen, you hope he's back, but he won't be starting, any of those first couple games if they have a playoff series.
Yeah, absolutely. And after the first, again, Marsh, the same first inning bugaboos on Monday night, he retired 11 of the next 14 batters after the 3 runs he gave up in the first inning. If you get through that first inning, right, one of those was a home run. One of those hits was a hit by pitch and then a double. So those were the 3 guys that got on after the first inning when they scored 3 runs. A home run, a hit by pitch, and a double in different innings. After the double to Ramirez is when Sam Long came in and relieved him, and Sam Long got out of that with getting Josh Naylor out. But again, it's a great question, and something that maybe only Alec Marsh can figure out is if the first inning is just the first inning he's on the mound no matter what, or if he turns in to be a 2-inning relief guy or a 1-inning guy, max velocity. Is it different because now he's not trying to throw 5 or 6 innings and make it through the first and second and third? Not sure. Not sure what it is. But he'll have to figure it out because I think he's going to be needed over the next couple of starts in Michael Lorenzen's place. And if they put him on the 15-day, then over the next 3 starts for Lorenzen, because you'd have to be on the 15-day. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and continue rolling. More Zone next. Down to 53 men. We know what the roster looks like. Some surprises there. Surprise rosters, surprise players that made the roster. Some surprises that did not. And a surprise in how the roster is constructed number-wise, with 26 guys on offense and only 24 guys on defense. This is the first time, going back to 2019, when Spags took over. Because before that it was a 3-4 defense, so it's much different in how their defensive numbers are broken down with the 3-4 and a 4-3. So going back to 2019, this is the first time that they have had an uneven number on offense and defense with 25-25, which is somewhat interesting. We'll talk about that in Cam Thomas next. like I said, it's go to the Kansas City Sports Commission on Twitter. They've got.
I was on the internets.
Oh well, that's
The
your fault for
interwebs.
being on the interwebs. So,
Sports.
really,
What?
Either way, he's got nice hair now. He's growing.
Well,
it out.
now I'm
He's got
intrigued
like
by
he's got
Travis's
like a
hair.
part. He's got a nice little part, going on. So, looks good. He's got he got the mustache still. He's still El Trabador. Just doesn't have his short of hair.
I'm
as he
bummed
did.
I shaved my mustache because.
Not as short of hair as when he showed up to training camp. But
No,
also,
but it's not long. I was expecting
I
he
didn't
had
say-
like
how long? How quickly do you think he grows his hair?
I don't know. Maybe he got extensions.
I mean, he started off training camp with almost a buzz cut.
Well, I didn't know. Maybe he had like some
No,
like
I'm saying
the
swoop. He got rid of just the almost buzz cut where the front part of the hair was like little.
Yeah,
like
it went from a 1 buzz cut to like a 3.
That's not a 3, dude. That's not a 3.
Close to a 3.
That's not a 3. I cut my own hair. I've done it for 20 years. All right, that's not a 3. That's at least an 8, maybe a 7, but it's at least an 8. I don't think it's a 7. That's an 8. That's probably a quarter or a half.
Well, let's get Travis in here.
Maybe
to ask him.
even a 1.
Travis Kelce, if you're around,
Just saying. You saying that's a 3?
swinging to the office.
The 3 was what he had before.
It's like a
Dylan,
1.
you know what Dylan, you've got that ain't a 3.
No.
I don't know. I just
It might be a 3 where like the hair is going.
Oh, it might be a
like,
3
the side,
near the. It might
that's
be
what I'm
a,
saying. The sideburns.
by his ears,
Right.
it might be a 3 to where it tapers.
What's mine?
The Kelsey,
Boom.
the fade.
You had the word I was looking for. Tapered.
The Kelsey, the fade.
So, as a man with
I
just
was
great
waiting till someone
lettuce,
did
I don't know these buzz
You
cut
use-
terms.
you use scissors.
Self gloss.
You use the scissors. That's fine. It's great. That's all good. No worries. But I'm just saying that's not a.
That's about the length of Sterling's hair, I would say.
Yeah, it's close.
Close.
Think
And
so?
kind of the same style.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's copying me now.
Yes, that's right. Travis Kelsey saw Sterling Holmes.
I had the mustache
thought-
first, and he copied it, and then I have
Really?
this lettuce, and he's copying it.
Really? That's not.
I did a podcast first. He's copying. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
T-Rav.
Yeah, I think that's probably an 8 on top. I think that's probably what that is. I'm just going by my experience of doing that. So,
Scissor cut.
but yeah, I don't know. It might be Clippers.
Maybe.
Clippers would work too. I think Sterling's got the scissor cut, right? And then Clippers on the side.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was
He's
gonna
got the
say.
Travis Kelsey.
Yeah,
No.
he's got the fade. He's got that.
No!
Look at that. The kids are getting the
No,
Travis
it's the new-
Kelsey.
he's got the
He's got the new
Travis
Travis
this year's
Kelsey. That's
Travis
right. Now you're
Kelce.
copying off Travis Kelsey's haircut. Weirdo. Now let me guess. Now you're gonna grow a mustache because Kelsey has one. Okay. Cool, man.
I was first.
Just be yourself. That's all.
I was first.
Let's talk about the roster for the Kansas City Chiefs. 53-man roster, the cut down. I went through to add up how many I got right, wrong. I ended up missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 4/5 on the 53-man roster because I was right about Irv Smith not being on the team.
Yeah.
But they kept 4 tight ends. But I put an asterisk next to that. Nobody could have had Peyton Hendershot on their on their. My 53-man has Peyton Hendershot from the Cowboys. So nobody got 53 out of 53. All right.
Or Cam Thomas.
Well, Cam Thomas would have been if you made it yesterday
If you made it,
morning.
yeah, but still, that
before
seems-
the 3 o'clock came out, or excuse me, before the Chiefs released it at 9 o'clock last night.
I will say some people did have they will bring in a guy, so I feel like that counts. But no one thought they were bringing in a 4th tight end outside of Irv Smith.
Just keeping Irv Smith. Once Irv Smith was cut, I'm like, okay, well then they're going to keep 10 offensive linemen, and they ended up keeping 10 offensive linemen. But then they also have a 4th tight end, which the numbers start to say, how can you have that? A 10th offensive lineman, a 4th tight end, and 7 wide receivers, and only have 25 offensive players? Well, turns out you can't. They have 26 guys, and defensively they have 24. So that's part of sort of missing out on a player too, is because I had an extra player on defense than the Chiefs actually kept. I had 20. I went way off board and had 25 defensive players, and they kept 24. But my most wrong was defensive tackle. I had them keeping 5 defensive tackles without Derek Nottie, but I had Pennell, Farrell, and Dickerson on the team, and Farrell and Dickerson were both waived. That was surprising that neither of those guys were kept. It's not a surprise that Derek Nottie was kept. I talked about that. That would be a surprise cut. You said, there's a surprise cut. I'm going to go with Derek Nottie. But they only have 4 defensive tackles. That's a surprise to me.
Yeah.
That it's Jones, Nottie, Turk, and Pennell. You've obviously got a game wrecker in Jones. You've got a guy who can be a 3 technique and rush the passer in Turk, and you got a couple of guys that can stop the run in Nottie and Pennell. Now, also, if you're rushing the passer, you don't need defensive tackles in there on obvious passing situations. Because
Mike Dana's going to switch over.
Cameron Thomas, it's what he does as well. He's a guy that, when you watch him at Arizona, one of his sacks this preseason came from the defensive tackle spot, beating the guard pretty quickly, getting around him from I think he was a 2-point stance inside like Leo Chanel does sometimes. Yeah. But back in college at San Diego State, he would be in a 4-point stance. He'd be in a 3-point stance. He'd be in a 2-point stance. He moved all over the defensive line. He would be at defensive tackle. He'd be lined up over the center sometimes. He'd be a 5. He'd be a 7. There's breaking news, Dylan. What's the breaking news there, Dylan?
Per Joel Goldberg and retweeted by Joel Penfield, Michael Lorenzen has been placed on the 15-day IL with a left hamstring strain. Right-handed pitcher Steven Cruz recalled from AAA Omaha. He was already here on the taxi squad.
Yeah. That's shocking. I'll tell you what, we're very surprised around here that Lorenzen went on the 15-day IL. Nobody saw that one coming.
This is my surprised face.
Nobody saw that one coming. At least we ended up talking about that in the previous segment. That I don't know the last time a pitcher walked off the mound with a hamstring injury and didn't land on the 15-day IL. Just saying. The only difference is Steven Cruz instead of Michael Lorenzen. That's until Lorenzen's next start. Then it'll be Steven Cruz for Alec Marsh. Or if maybe it works itself out that maybe something else happens. Hopefully not. So Michael Lorenzen, 15-day IL. Steven Cruz called up to be an extra arm in the bullpen until they need that 5th starter. And then I'm assuming Alec Marsh will then take that role. But the trading for Cameron Thomas, I think yesterday, when I did my Volume 3, Cam Thomas was on it because they had already traded for him on Monday night or early Tuesday morning, whenever that was. But Roland Wallace, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, that Sterling got that one right. That was his guy he liked and pinpointed. We both got our guy that we liked and was sort of off the board.
His son.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like the term for anyone that really likes a player. It's his son.
That's my son. Championing
Large
him.
adult son.
That's right.
Yep.
You went Chris Roland Wallace, and I went Ethan Driscoll to make the squad, and he made the squad. By the way, St. John, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at Stephen St. John at all. I just want to preface it with
someone who was mad.
No, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Maybe hurt a little bit.
Ah.
But not mad.
Please don't let the newspaper know I was mad.
But I'm not mad, though. That's the thing, is I want to make sure people know I'm not mad. It's just a little hurt, maybe a little disappointed. This morning he was talking about guys that made the 53-man roster, and he's like, hey, credit where credit is due. Chris Roland Wallace makes the squad, and he goes, a couple of people that I know that, we're talking about him. I can't remember the first one he said, because the second one he goes, and credit where credit is due. I was driving around listening to the
Jason talk. He's like,
let me check my text. I know I'm not supposed to be texting and driving, but Jason's talking, so I can do other things. Oh, Sterling's talking again. Chris Roland Wallace, all right, neat. But what I was wrong about with Ethan Driscoll was I thought they would keep Ethan Driscoll because of the injury to Wanya Morris. I didn't think it would be Ethan Driscoll or Lucas Niang.
Yeah.
That's what really surprising. I knew they liked Ethan Driscoll, and there was a concern of getting him through to waivers because, 6'7", 335 that, can move a little bit like him. There's probably a team that's pretty bad that could use a 9th or 10th offensive lineman, and we'll take a chance on this guy, and we'll bring him in, and we'll develop him along the way, and we're not trying to win a Super Bowl. Whereas the Chiefs at this point, look, Niang's run its course. You've given him every chance to win a spot, and it hasn't happened. And now Ethan Driscoll, and maybe it's because I would say they probably trust Driscoll more at left tackle than they would Lucas Niang. Where Wanya Morris, he played right tackle in college. Played left tackle, too, in different spots. But if Juwan Taylor were to miss time, Lucas Niang can fill in. But Wanya can fill in as well. Left tackle, well, you know Wanya Morris can fill in because he played it last year. Ethan Driscoll has been playing left tackle behind Kingsley and Wanya Morris when he was healthy. So Driscoll can play on the left side. I don't think they trusted Lucas Niang to play on the left side if need be. So you go with Ethan Driscoll, and he can play right and left, but he's actually been playing through training camp on the left side.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little bit more trust that, hey, if we are in an emergency situation, we know this guy is actually brushing his teeth with his dominant hand. We're not moving him over to the other side, which is what offensive linemen talk about, moving from the right to the left. You don't know how difficult it is. If you play left tackle your whole life, they move you to right tackle. Now switch over and brush your teeth with your other hand. It's the exact opposite of the step, opposite everything, okay? It's not as easy as just, oh, well, he's good on the left side. He'll play right side, right?
They should use a different analogy because you could do it.
Like, yeah, you can do it, right, but it's not as comfortable.
Yeah,
It's not as
I think
comfortable
I
as-
could brush my teeth. I'm doing it tomorrow morning. I'm gonna
you
send a
can.
video to every offensive lineman.
Did anybody say you can't do it? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure
It
nobody
just looks
said
awkward.
you can't do it. It's not as comfortable to do it. It's not as easy as like, oh, well, this is what I've been doing. You know, I brush my teeth right.
You a lefty or righty?
Well, I'm a righty.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, you know, if something were to happen to one of the offensive linemen, I think it makes sense that an Ethan Driscoll would be in there over Lucas Niang, thinking more about it other than just saying Ethan Driscoll's on the team because there's a concern of Wanya Morris's knee. You're not going to put him on IR because he's not going to miss 4 weeks at the bone bruise. But if something happens in practice or early in a game or something, do you have somebody else that's there? But 10 offensive linemen. They kept Hunter Norzad. They kept C.J. Hansen. They only end up cutting one draft pick, and that's Kamal Haddon.
Yeah.
It's the only draft pick. Honestly, my biggest surprise of the 53-man roster was Nick Jones. That was the biggest surprise because I don't see it, and it didn't look like the Chiefs were seeing it with how much he wasn't really playing. And, you know, and I mean like early with the ones and twos almost. Early in training camp, he was the backup to Shamari Connor in the slot. And it felt like he sort of lost that job. And when I watched him on the field, I'm like, he doesn't really look like that good of a cornerback, but I know they like him. All right, we'll see. But he made the squad. That's pretty interesting to me. And without Deion Bush, they go with 4 safeties, which I didn't have Deion Bush on the roster. I had Keith Taylor and Kelvin Joseph, and then took Kelvin Joseph off. And I put Nick Jones on, but I put it in italics because I didn't want to. And it was like Nick Jones and Deion Bush. But it was Nick Jones or Echo Boydo, but I didn't know but Echo Boydo was waived. And it's like, who are they going to keep if they're going to keep, 6 cornerbacks? Because I thought they would be keeping 6 cornerbacks. I didn't go Roland Wallace. I should have listened to you more. But Keith Taylor there. But Keith Taylor's not on the team. But it's the Nick Jones one is surprising because it didn't look like as camp went on, they believed in him as much. Clearly as much as they started to believe in Roland Wallace, who can play safety, who can play cornerback, like Shamari Connor. Shamari Connor played safeties, played cornerback. Roland Wallace played cornerback in college. They switched him to safety. Mm-hmm. He's listed as a cornerback now with the Chiefs, so he can do a number of different things. But it is interesting that the Chiefs were playing sort of the waiver wire in trading for Cameron Thomas, trading for Peyton Hendershot, that there was some depth issues on the team in certain spots that we were seeing that the Chiefs certainly felt the same way. And so many injuries to the defensive back that it's surprising that maybe they didn't go 6 cornerbacks and 5 safeties so they can keep 25 and 25. And a little surprising there was only 4 defensive tackles. So
I think it was interesting that, yes, Nick Jones, there's a couple of first-rounders that were former first-rounders who were released. C.J. Henderson, right? He was drafted like 9th overall. He was released. Caleb Farley from the Titans, he was released. That just feels very Brett Veach to take a chance back into your roster on a former first-round talent. Yeah, Nick Jones was a surprise. I thought Deion Bush was going to make it because of special teams and the value of special teams this year.
Yeah.
But Peyton Hendershot is a special teams ace, supposedly. So Spags at least has him again. Obviously different positions, but just how they'll be used on special teams.
Yeah.
I hope Deion Bush makes it through to the practice squad.
Well, I mean, he can do it. He's a vested veteran.
Well,
so
it's up to him. But if he gets a job,
Right.
if a team offers him a 53-man
For sure.
spot, you're taking that game check every single time.
Absolutely.
I like what Deion Bush brought to the Chiefs in that emergency role, but again, I think the Nick Jones making the roster and then the 10 offensive linemen, the loss of Niang, but keeping both Driscoll and Hansen was a surprise. I thought it'd be one or the other because both are developmental guys.
Yeah, with Niang, I think the unfortunate part for him is that not only did he lose the job when he was healthy, but when he was, I think that the last time I remember filling in a regular season game was, I think, Cincinnati when Orlando Brown Jr. had something flare up in warm-ups. He went out there, I thought looked really good, then that's when he had the injury.
Yeah.
So when he had those opportunities and he was starting, he couldn't stay healthy. And then once he got healthy, he couldn't win that job back.
Yeah.
So as you said, Jason, he got the opportunity and he couldn't really do much with it. At this point, I think you take somebody who's 6'8", 335 and can move, by the way, very nimble for his size.
Especially showing him on that Deneric Prince run when he was running down and blocking out in front of Prince. Like, that was impressive.
And maybe that's another one we can bring up is Deneric Prince and Clyde not playing at all in the preseason, but going to stick around because probably just that he's a veteran. He knows the offense, and maybe Deneric Prince's final game put the nail in the coffin, or the death nail, I think, as you called it, with a couple of guys. I would have liked to see Deneric Prince make it, but if you are going with Carson Steele, who is a rookie, who hasn't done it at the NFL level, not sure you can keep Deneric Prince because he hasn't done it at the NFL level.
I think Deneric Prince had, out of all the players, the biggest missed opportunity for him. Because you can say, like, well, Irv Smith got cut. Well, Irv Smith went into camp thinking he had a job. Well, they signed Irv Smith before they drafted Jared Wiley. So maybe Irv Smith was signed, Wiley was there, and now Irv Smith becomes expendable. Now they need more of a blocking tight end, even though Hendershot is not necessarily that. He's a special teams guy, so if you're going to keep somebody later on in the team, Irv Smith's not going to be on special teams as much as Hunter or a Peyton Hendershot. I keep calling him Hunter Hendershot. I don't know why.
Hunter Henry is probably on your mind.
Yes, probably.
I would take Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry shot, yeah. But Peyton Hendershot, when they trade for him. But Deneric Prince came into camp as, like, at worst, the third running back. He was getting all of the snaps after Pacheco with the first team. First game, Pacheco, Deneric Prince. Practice, Pacheco, Deneric Prince. And then he's cut. That guy had as great of an opportunity in front of him to be on the 53-man roster, and he didn't seize the opportunity. The opportunity of a lifetime has to be taken in the lifetime of the opportunity. Think about that.
Wow.
And Deneric Prince didn't do it. He's probably the most disappointing, I would say, of all the players that entered camp that had a great chance of making the squad and was probably on the squad when training camp started.
But again, he was an undrafted guy.
Yeah, for sure.
So...
But so was Carson Steele.
No. I think he had, the biggest fall off, if you will.
Yeah.
But how much of that was also just, I don't want to say lack of talent, but maybe just lack of, again, you're undrafted. He gave it all he could.
Right, and the Chiefs wanted him, they gave him every chance to.
Yes.
And that's where I was sort of like looking at it where, Niang didn't make the squad, but Niang's had plenty of opportunities and been on the team. Deneric Prince is fighting for game checks, fighting to be on a 53-man roster. Niang's been there, done that. Dickerson's been there. Farrell's been there. The secondary group, like the guys that were on the squad when training camp started, made the squad. McDuffie, Watson, Williams, Najee Johnson. Then after that, it was figuring out who was going to step up and take a spot. Is it going to be Nick Jones, Keith Taylor, Roland Wallace? Is it going to be Kelvin Joseph? The safeties, Reed, Cook, Hicks, Connor, those were the guys, Not making the squad like, Truman Jones, but I don't think Truman Jones was on the team or felt like he was on the team when training camp started,
Sure.
Like an initial 53-man roster before training camp, how many had Truman Jones? Maybe some did.
Maybe Echo Bodo.
Yeah,
Echo Bodo could be in that
But
category.
I don't think he was like to the point that Deneric Prince
No,
was
you're
the
right.
third running back at worst starting camp, and then he was getting all of the reps with the first team after Pacheco, and he's not on the team.
We just talked about Lucas Niang and Deneric Prince kind of being guys that, well, they had their opportunities.
Yeah.
It is ironic to me, though, that we don't view Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that light, because it feels like for the last 3 years there's been that conversation of, well, it's kind of run its course at this point. And this preseason, there were a lot of other things off the field that were going on, why he couldn't play. But in his career, he has dealt with injuries that have kept him off the field. Honestly, that injury he had in New Orleans in the COVID year, I think was the career-altering injury, because I don't think he's ever been the same from that point. But the Chiefs seem to view him maybe not in the same way as Sky Moore, but there's not really been anything over the last few years that is giving you the confidence of, okay, one more year and he's going to either regain what he had or he is going to finally show you the production you believe he can give you. But, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, either it was just that Deneric Prince had to do a lot more, even with him off the field, or it's that, going into camp, once we get him right, once he gets back in here, he is the number 2, number 3 back. And, maybe he plays more than Carson Steele. Maybe he doesn't. I don't really know for that. But I do find it interesting that we're on year 5, or is it year 4, year 5 of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and it almost feels copy-paste of what has been every single offseason, every single camp. He could be a surprise cut. We don't really know, and he makes the team. He doesn't get a lot of snaps, but he's still there. And maybe it's just until somebody is drafted or it's an undrafted free agent comes in like a Carson Steele. I mean, one more Carson Steele next year, and maybe you don't keep Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I think he benefits from the running back room not being that good.
Yeah.
Outside of Pacheco, who's there? Well, Edwards-Helaire. They trust him. They know what he can do. He's been in the offense for a while. You know what you're getting with him. Deneric Prince didn't do enough. Carson Steele's been really good. But as you said, like if McKinnon 2 years ago was on this team, Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably isn't.
Well, I think Clyde's now the veteran.
Yeah.
The Chiefs
And-
love. The
and
Chiefs
he's
love.
a great locker room guy.
Yeah,
like
but
that,
that's
they absolutely
well liked.
love Edwards-Helaire. The coaches love him. The players love him. That matters if it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. You know.
Again, if it was McKinnon, yeah, because McKinnon would be that veteran guy now.
Yeah.
The Chiefs love having whoever's at the front. They love having a young guy, and then there's the veteran as your third dude.
Yeah.
Whether it's Shady McCoy, Jerick McKinnon, I wonder if Clyde's now just taking over the elder statesman role and the back end of the running back room.
You feel good for Peyton Hendershot, right? What a day yesterday. He's going to get cut by the Cowboys, and he ends up on the Chiefs. I mean, good God. Not like the Cowboys suck, but you're going to get cut. You're about to get – or maybe who had a better day, Peyton Hendershot or Amanda Hendershot? Because she was about to be married to a guy who's trying to figure out if he can make a practice squad. Now she's married to a guy who's in the room with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Now Amanda Hendershot is now in the Taylor Swift circle. I mean, that's a hell of a day, right? I don't know if she's a Swiftie or not, but I mean, early 20s, early mid, probably a Swiftie. I don't know. Don't want to assume.
Peyton, whatever you do, do not screw this up.
But,
Become
I mean,
friends with Trav.
You went from that to now you're hanging out with Kelce and Taylor. I mean, when Trav has the tight ends over and hanging out and doing some bonding stuff. Oh, hey, there's Taylor Swift making her Pop-Tarts for the tight end room. Oh yeah, I'm Amanda. Nice to meet you. Big fan. Absolutely. My husband wants to wear number 13 just for you. We're so excited. What a day, huh?
Why 13, Jason?
That's how many years he wants to play in the NFL, Sterling. awards banquet last night.
Breaking news.
What's the breaking news? There's breaking news. Dylan, breaking news sounder. Jack, don't you dare say anything. We can't say breaking news without that. Play it again just because this is big breaking news, I'm told.
Veteran safety Deion Bush is signing back with the Chiefs.
How about that,
practice squad.
huh? There you go. Because he didn't have to clear waivers.
Huge.
That is
huge.
He can get a honcho on special teams. All right, 913-912-4810. We talked about the Chiefs and the 53-man roster and some of the surprises from that. I want to talk about Cameron Thomas here because it's an interesting move, and I know that they have some issues with the depth, and Truman Jones would have been the fifth defensive end. And it became the common theme of training camp that if the Chiefs were going to work the waiver wire or work a trade to add depth to a positional group, it would have been the defensive end spot. That's where they were in the most need because of Charles Omenihu starting the season on the PUP and hoping to return in November, early November-ish. So that's not just on the PUP. You're missing the first 4 games. You're missing the first 4 games and then some. Because, I mean, you're talking about what's a typical ACL? 10 months? 11? Like, I know we
I just say a year. I just say a year.
Right, I know we say, like, well, it's 9 months to get back to practicing.
Yeah.
And then what about between the ears to where you actually cut and press and do some of those things? Like, this guy injured his knee in late January. Like, it's 7 months ago. Like, I mean, I know he wanted to play against the 49ers 2 weeks after, tearing his ACL, but, that's not possible, right? I mean, Adrian Peterson is not of this world when it comes to recovering from an ACL injury, 9 months later and then rushing for 2,000 yards. Like, that's not typical. So, with Omenihu being out for as long as he is, the Cameron Thomas thing is an interesting move. Let's play this. This was I found the ESPN draft coverage from 2022 in the 3rd round when Cameron Thomas was selected by the Arizona Cardinals. And this is what it was Mike Greenberg, but then Louis Riddick talking about what Cameron Thomas brings to the table. This was coming out of the draft from San Diego State.
Cameron Thomas, defensive end, San Diego State.
A versatile and productive, played both tackle and end in college, put up crazy numbers. How about 11.5 sacks, 23.5 tackles for loss last year playing for Brady Hoke.
Look, this is a guy who says he patterns his game after J.J. Watt. Well, where did you just get drafted? In Arizona, where there's J.J. Watt. And the reason why is because of this. He can play defensive tackle, he can play defensive end. Relentless motor, really good upper body strength. He just is very slippery on the inside. Good with his hands, good to shock, shed, disengage, get to the football. Real good run game instincts. On the perimeter, again, out of a 2-point, to me, he looks better than out of a 3-point. And that's at 267 pounds. Think of some of the stats this guy had. He had 4+ pressures in 13 to 14 games. At least 1 sack in 9 straight games from week 4 to week 13. He is productive. He has got a great motor. He is versatile. And he patterns his game after J.J. Watt, who he's now teammates with.
Louis Riddick liked the guy a lot. And what was interesting is like some of the video that they were showing of him was lining up at defensive tackle and, lining up outside and, moving around the entire defensive line. Like I said, 2-point stance, 3-point stance, 4-point stance at times. And that sounds like a Steve Spagnuolo defensive lineman, a guy that can play outside, hopefully help out in the run and be a 3-down defensive lineman. But a guy that you can slide down on the inside, again, feels like a Mike Dana type player. And everybody keeps talking about the motor. The motor. Well, it's the motor of this guy. And that's what the film shows, right? I mean, the film shows that he continues to work and work and work. 2 of his 3 sacks, I believe, in the preseason were the motor. Dane Brugler in his The Beast at The Athletic, which is one of my favorite draft guides, along with KCSN's draft guide. Those are the 2 sort of resources that I use the most. He wrote about Cameron Thomas, talked about the strengths, Prototypical size and build for edge work, rushes downhill, natural momentum out of his stance, shows the lateral quickness to cross the face of blockers, penetrate gaps. Fun scout words, right? This very scouty words there.
Buzzwords.
Varies arm over moves with strong hands to rip swipe or double swipe. Here's the summary from what Dane Brugler said about Cameron Thomas. Overall, Thomas is a tight face-up rusher with inconsistent pad level, but he is a hard charger with the cranked motor and physical hands to wear down blockers and find the football. He projects as a 4-3 defensive end with 3-down potential. That was Dane Brugler's write-up on him. I went and found, oddly enough, the KCSN and Kent Swanson, big shout-out to Kent Swanson, that they wrote about Cameron Thomas, specifically in 2022. And Kent Swanson writes, here's a pass rush prospect the Chiefs could pursue as early as day 2 of the NFL draft. A pass rusher worth keeping an eye on. Cameron Thomas, defensive end, San Diego State. Kent Swanson, well done. And just talks about, the strengths that high motor, some of the things that Dane Brugler talked about. Motor's always running hot. One of the reasons he accumulated so many sacks the past year. The guy doesn't quit. They've got a motor guy in George Karlaftis, and we know what we've seen from Karlaftis when he's worked and has that motor. Nate Tice had Cameron Thomas out of college ranked as the number 89 prospect. I was looking at his list, and oddly enough, like 2 spots down was Brian Cook, number 91. I thought that was interesting. Leo Chanel, he had at number 56, just around that time where the Chiefs were drafting. So they get a guy that, hasn't played to the potential that the Cardinals were hoping he would be, especially this last year, compared to what he did in his first year. With fewer pass rush snaps, he had more sacks and more pressures in his first year in the NFL than he did in his second year this last year. I like this tweet from Doug Farrar at The Athletic. Scout, and says, and he wrote about it at Athlon Sports. Says, new on Athlon Sports. This was 50 minutes ago. Says, the Chiefs' trade for Arizona Cardinals defensive lineman Cameron Thomas didn't make for big news on Tuesday, but he's exactly the kind of player Steve Spagnuolo can turn into a rock star. As always, the tape don't lie. And then there's a, article that he wrote at Athlon Sports in which he has film study that he's looking at what Cameron Thomas does. It's really interesting. We'll see what he ends up being for the Chiefs. But it's odd that so many people that cover the NFL feel like this is a guy that can be a productive player. And it's like, the Chiefs end up with them. Why? Are you trading this guy for a 7th rounder? We know it's scheme fit, right? Yeah. And we know some Arizona Cardinals fans weren't happy with the fact that, he ended up being traded for just a 7th rounder. But I get a little bit more excited when I read about, what people said about him coming out, and then what, like, Nick Jacobs talking about what Cameron Thomas does and looking at his sacks and sort of film study a little bit, and others that have looked at what he's done as an Arizona Cardinal. And then Doug Farrar, out of all the moves that were made yesterday, trades and cut downs and all of that stuff, one of the main articles he writes today about cut down day and different trades is about Cameron Thomas to the Chiefs and saying he's exactly the kind of player Steve Spagnuolo can turn into a rock star, is Cameron Thomas. And again, it just sounds like another guy that, move him down to defensive tackle, he can play the 3. One of the things that KCSN wrote is he can play the 3 technique, 5, 7, and 9 if need be. Like, he's that versatile. And again, as I said, 4-point stance, 2-point stance, 3-point stance. He's got sacks and pressures in all of those.
Yeah.
It didn't work out in Arizona for some reason. Maybe he's just not as good as people thought he could be coming out of college. He was a 3rd rounder, right? Still a day 2 pick. 3rd rounders are fine. They're good. But as a defensive end pass rusher, 3rd rounders don't typically turn out to be studs unless they fail a drug test on Combine Day and their name is Justin Houston. Then 3rd rounders can turn out to be studs because they were 1st rounders before that happened. So, sort of depends on what you're getting. When a 3rd rounder, you're probably getting a guy that has some ability, that has a great motor, and won't stop. And those were sort of his sacks. Are the sacks, and there's some coverage snaps, and there's some coverage sacks that are there. But you know what? George Karlaftis had some coverage sacks. Tamba Hali has coverage sacks. And you know what a coverage sack does? This is a great part about it. So it's like, sort of a negative. It's like, well, yeah, he got some sacks, but it was a coverage sack. You know what a coverage sack does? It ends the play. So the quarterback can't keep the ball any longer.
He can't keep still a sack.
He can't keep moving around back there and throw the ball anymore because the play is over on a coverage sack because that's what it ends up being, a sack.
When people say that, yes, it means that the secondary did their job, which is great. But when you use it as a negative, I always wonder, did you want them to not sack the quarterback? Would you have preferred them to not bring him down?
Didn't get there. Didn't get, because then you're complaining about. I don't think people complain about coverage sacks. It's like, hey, just be nice if you got there sooner. Hey, great job secondary. Good job bringing the guy down.
Sure.
It's the, oh my God, you're not getting there, and he's got all day, and then he completes the pass. Then you're really annoyed because the secondary's doing their job. You're not doing your job. But I think that's where the motor comes in. When you've got Karlaftis, Jones, Dana, and maybe Cameron Thomas, all guys that are high motor players that are just not going to stop and keep working. Yeah, this is a guy that Steve Spagnuolo and his skill set can utilize in different ways. He's not going to be Chris Jones.
No.
He's not going to be George Karlaftis.
No.
But he raises the floor. That's what they did the last 2 days. The Chiefs did on Monday and Tuesday. They raised the floor of their offense with their wide receiver room and Juju Smith-Schuster, and they raised the floor of their defensive line by bringing in Cameron Thomas to play defensive end because the other guy that would have been the fifth defensive end was Truman Jones. You got better. And midway through the season, your trade deadline move will be Charles Omenihu.
Yeah.
Bringing him back. So that works out as well. I like the move. It's for a 7th rounder. They gave up a 3rd rounder and others for Kadarius Toney. You got a great punt return out of it. Was it worth it? Was it not? People are arguing all over the place whether it was worth it or not. I know they won the Super Bowl. That's fine. It's a great punt return. It added percentage of the percentage chance of winning, added a lot, like I think 15%.
That's why I always say it was worth it. Because we have the ability of, we know what happened. And know
exactly.
Would you take a Super Bowl victory for a 3rd and 7th rounder? The answer is yes.
And that's what I've said. Like, the Chiefs got every single yard in the second half that they wanted to get. The only yard they didn't get is when they slid at the 1-yard line. But it doesn't mean that on that drive that would have maybe started at the 40, their own 40 or 45, that you're carrying the ball, you get hit the wrong way, and the ball pops out.
Yeah.
Well, you got every single yard. You just happened to then fumble it when you got inside the 25-yard line, and now points are not on the board. Instead, it was a touchdown.
Yeah.
They got that. So we know they won the Super Bowl with Kadarius Toney's punt return. I think they still win the Super Bowl without Kadarius Toney's punt return. They were still leading, and the offense was unstoppable in the second half. But it was time to move on from him. We'll see what this guy ends up being. It's only a 7th rounder.
Do the Chiefs make this move even if FAU looked good in the preseason? Because
that's the big question.
Because you could still say maybe it's independent of each other because they still want 4 defensive ends. And you're like, yeah, but is he better than Malik Herring? Is he better than Truman Jones? You can make the case that this is an independent move of FAU. I just don't know how much it really is, though.
I think it probably is just more so insurance because Omenihu's not out there. But also at the same time, it's not like FAU gave you much in the preseason when the snaps were there for opportunity for you to at least have some sort of film going into the regular season of, hey, he has improved from his rookie season. And I think it was probably a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, when we were hearing that audio about FAU and where he was last year. I think Spags said that he was one of those guys that got off to a slow start but has gotten better each and every week. I mean, it gives you somebody there that could be the insurance, not just for Omenihu, but if FAU is no different than what he did last year. Because last year, he was a non-factor. He couldn't really get out there on the field, and maybe a guy like Cameron Thomas could be somebody where you give FAU that chance early on, but if he doesn't do anything with it, all right, now Cameron Thomas is the guy that's going to take your snaps.
My answer to is this independent of FAU, it's yes and no.
Now, how's that fence?
Okay,
Jason.
So here's the point. It's not the fence. I'll give you the yes on both sides, on either side. But independent of FAU, I say yes, it is. If FAU was playing awesome football, they would still need a 5th defensive end, somebody to add the depth. It's more directly connected to Omenihu.
Yeah.
But also independent of FAU, no, because we're immediately talking about Cameron Thomas being able to put pressure on the quarterback with Dana and Turk and Jones and Karlaftis. So it's not independent of FAU and directly connected because does he move up in the pecking order above FAU now? So that's where it's connected. It is like you needed depth because Omenihu was out but you don't know what you're going to get in Felix, unfortunately. If Felix had stepped up, I think the answer would be no and no. Or yes and yes. Is this independent of FAU? Yeah. Yes, it is. The trade with depth and playing time, etc. Has nothing to do with FAU. They just wanted depth. Independent of FAU? Yes, they wanted depth. They needed another guy on the defensive line with the Minihoo on the pup. But it's not completely independent because he's now a guy that you're going to be relying upon to put pressure on the quarterback, even more so because you haven't got that from FAU yet. So it can't just simply be, well, this has nothing to do with FAU. Yeah, it does. It does. The hope of Cameron Thomas being something has a lot to do with the fact that you haven't seen much from your first-round draft pick last year. And that's a problem. And the more time goes by, the lower the ceiling gets, the lower the expectations get for Felix. Last year was a redshirt year development. He had the hand injury. Took him a little while to get acclimated. Okay, I get it. Early on in the season, showed some flashes from time to time. Minihoo came in, and his playing time went down. Super Bowl gets in there, tackle for loss. All right, showing some flashes. Preseason hasn't really done that. And I think that's part of the need of going out and getting depth on the defensive end spot is because you're not getting what you were hoping to get from your first-round draft pick. And I'm excited about what Cameron Thomas can bring to the table. My expectations are not outlandish in, this guy's going to go out there and get, 6, 7 sacks. He's got 3 career sacks.
Yeah.
All right. He's got 19 career pressures.
Triple
in 2
it.
years. Yeah.
Triple it.
9 sacks. Come on. He's got 19 career pressures in his NFL career on 350 pass rush snaps.
Triple it.
So there's some perspective to be gained with this. He's got the traits. He's got things that Steve Spagnuolo may like. He offers versatility. We'll see what he ends up looking like. But, yeah, I think it is and it is not. There's my technically fence sitting, but it's sort of 2 questions to the same overall under the umbrella of the question about FAU. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. Some Chiefs football. What do we think of what this offense will look like? Sky Moore made the team. And boy, there were some upset people on Twitter yesterday when I reported that Nico Remigio was being released by the Chiefs. Oh, that got more reaction than in the morning when I said Kadarius Toney and Justin Ross were being cut.
Dave Tope was actually the leader of
Yeah,
of
Dave
the
Tope was
angry,
pissed. He was mad at me. He was like, "Says who?"
Yeah, the angry mob.
It's like
Sources? The Chiefs.
Andy. That frozen custard. He told me.
Oh, now I want frozen custard.
Nico
Jason
was no more O on the team-O. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We had up until 2 o'clock. Mick Schaefer will hang out with him coming up an hour from now. Talking a lot of Chiefs football, NFL football. Chiefs finalizing their 53-man roster. And one of the things I wanted to look at is I think we have an answer to the question, but I'll still pose the question because I want to look at both sides. One of them being, as they start their 53-man roster this year, as they start this year with we know who the 53 men are, what's the most improved position group, and what's the position group that we feel like has taken the biggest step back?
Ooh.
Because I think the improved one is probably obvious with wide receiver.
I think both are kind of obvious, actually.
In the secondary or cornerback
I was
room?
going to say cornerback room.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if maybe there was another one that's thrown in there of whether it be defensive end or even though you've got, Dana Karlaftis and Amina who's on the pup, but that's essentially who it was last year. Or maybe I guess backup offensive line can't be technically a positional group because it'd be overall offensive line.
Yeah.
And I think the offensive line overall may have gotten a little worse when you look at the depth along with the starters.
Yeah.
But if Kingsley is anywhere, I think Kingsley can be Donovan Smith and then could progress to be better than him at the end of the year. So starting offensive line, and I think Jawan Taylor will improve this year.
Yes,
I think he'll be
agreed.
better. So I think starting offensive line is going to be better than what it was last year. But there is concern about the depth with some inexperience of 3 of those 5 players that are backups are rookies, one of those being an undrafted rookie. Another one being a second-year player that's dealing with a bone bruise in Wanya Morris. So some concern there. And another one being a guy in Caliendo who's had his trouble, snapping the football. That we said, is he going to fill into that Allegretti role? Well, Allegretti could snap the football and play center.
Dead man snap. Got to go to the dead man snap.
Dead ball.
Dead ball snap.
Yes.
Dead man snap would be bad.
That would be
we would have some issues. Dead ball snap.
Dead ball snap. And Caliendo hasn't done the things that we were seeing Allegretti do, filling in at center if need be. But I'm not surprised, but I'm excited about how much improved the wide receiver room is. I am a little surprised at the reaction yesterday when Nico Remigio was released, or when I put out that Nico Remigio was released. There are, and I like Nico as well. He was on my 53-man roster until Volume 3. Until I watched the 3rd preseason game, and I'm like, I don't think he's on this team. And especially when they traded for Juju. Obviously, we talked about that being more Justin Ross and Sky Moore being on the team because he didn't play in the 3rd preseason game. McColl being on the team because they're keeping 7 with Hollywood Brown's injury. So Nico Remigio, odd man out. But the amount of people that love Remigio and hate Sky Moore. The second one, I guess I can understand because Sky Moore hasn't lived up to being a second-round wide receiver.
Sure.
He certainly hasn't lived up to the Pickens or, guys that may have gone around him, although, other guys around him aren't really doing
No one's
all
really
that.
doing much.
Yeah,
It's
except
been
for Pickens.
Yeah. It's kind of like McCole Hardman,
Yeah.
same thing. Everyone goes to DK Metcalf. For some reason, not Andy Isabella.
But somebody on Twitter had replied, and I thought it was a great point, with a number of people that were responding about how mad they were about, good God, what has Sky done? Who does Sky Moore have information on as to why he keeps being on this team? And somebody brought up and said, hey, remember when everybody lost their minds over trading Amir Smith-Marset last year? And I thought that's a great point because people did get up like, are you seriously trading this guy? You're trading Amir Smith-Marset? What are you doing? You don't have a whole lot at wide receiver, but this guy's a kick returner, punt returner, wide receiver. How are you getting rid of this guy? I don't think anybody remembers or cares all that much about Amir Smith-Marset being on the Panthers.
He did have a punt return for a touchdown.
He had a punt return for a touchdown, and the Chiefs won a Super Bowl, so I guess it didn't matter. But I think it's one of those you get infatuated with a guy at camp and what he could be.
Yeah.
Because it's the Christmas present you haven't opened up yet. It's the new toy that doesn't have the scratch or the squeaky wheel or some of the blemishes from playing with that toy for a year or 2 years, so you're more excited about what that might be. It may be the same. It may be a worse toy than what you already have, but you don't know. There's the possibility. It's endless. Like, there's so many different things it could be. And that's what Nico Remigio is. It's like, oh, he could be this, he could be that, he could be better than Sky Moore. Certainly he could. But they've got 2 years left on Sky Moore's contract, and they do like him.
Yeah.
And at least this isn't a Nico to Sky Moore comparison. It's more of a Sky Moore to Kadarius Toney. He shows up at things. He seems to be a pretty good teammate, seems to enjoy being around the team. I don't know if Kadarius Toney does that or not. Who knows? Maybe he's the same thing. But clearly they've gotten to the end of their rope with Kadarius Toney. They've gotten to the end of the rope as a guy who was on the 53-man roster with Justin Ross. And Nico Remigio was just a numbers game. Maybe Remigio was never going to be on the team unless it was Sky Moore, because if Juju's not on the team, it's Justin Ross.
Yeah.
I do wonder at what point during the offseason and training camp do we think Kadarius Toney was cut? Because it wasn't the last few days.
No, but they gave him a lot of opportunities. I do
last
think
Thursday, I think it was a showcase. They tried to trade him. I mean, there was the report yesterday that they were trying to trade him all day. They were looking for a trade partner. They didn't get one, so they released him. I think they tried to showcase him on Thursday that, hey, this guy's got some stuff, he can do. But I do wonder at what point they said, we're moving on from this guy. He's not going to be somebody that's going to be on this opening day 53-man roster.
I don't think it's as long ago as people would probably expect. I think maybe a week and a half, maybe 10 days, but I mean, you and I were both talking how even early into training camp, no chance, man. Like,
what are they doing?
You got to move on.
How is this guy going to be on the team?
I think the Chiefs tried to give him chance after chance, opportunity after opportunity, and he just either didn't care or he never took it. And then with Nico specifically, when Sky Moore was looking so good on kick returns, I think that was what really did it.
Yeah.
Because that was Nico's calling card was, okay, well,
right.
I won't be a wide receiver. I'm wide receiver 6/7. I will be a special teamer. Well, when Sky Moore started doing that, the Chiefs are going to go with Sky.
Yeah.
I wonder how it operates if they keep 7 wide receivers when Hollywood's healthy. That would be a surprise to me. I don't know who's the odd man out. If it's Sky, if it's McCole, it has to be one of those two, but it might be McCole. Especially if Sky is your kick returner, him and Carson Steele back there. I'm intrigued to see how week 3 or week 4, how much change we will see from this week 1 53-man roster.
I mean, they may. We may just be watching all 7 players that are then healthy, and you just switch Hollywood Brown from being inactive to active, and maybe McCole Hardman from being active to inactive on game day.
Sure.
Or Sky Moore. It might just be as simple as that. They stay with 7 wide receivers, but they activate 6 on game day, and Hollywood Brown is just the inactive the first 3 weeks. And they don't have to make a move.
One of the dumbest rules in the NFL,
part,
the inactive rules. It's so...
Yeah, I'm with you.
So absurd.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's pretty dumb. But the cornerback room, there's some real questions there. Like, as much as we were concerned about the wide receiver room last year, for good reason, that has flipped to the cornerback room. And we haven't had those feelings about the cornerback room in a couple of years, because what Charvarius Ward and L'Jarius Sneed were doing. And then L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie when he was healthy. Outside of the 6 games that he missed, but when he was healthy. But even then, you were like, wow, they really have something in Josh Williams and Jalen Watson. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs can just spread some cornerback dust on different guys and turn out to be productive players. Like, they just find guys that are traits and coach them up and coach to those traits, to the scheme. And last year, with L'Jarius Sneed and McDuffie and how good the secondary was, McDuffie having a career year, or a Sneed having the best year of his career, and McDuffie being an all-pro. And this year, McDuffie looks the same, but I don't know. Is it Watson? He looked bad.
Yeah.
He needs the reps, but he didn't look great. Williams has been up and down. Najee Johnson continues to battle injury, and Williams, by the way, is injured right now.
Yeah.
Roland Wallace, no idea what to expect from him if he's in a game. Nick Jones, no thank you.
That's the biggest surprise if anyone making the 53 was probably Nick Jones.
Yeah, Nick Jones, no thank you if he's out there on the field. And, Shamari Connor playing in the slot helps out a little bit. If Shamari Connor was just simply a safety and you're like, wow, you got to have McDuffie and Jones and Jalen Watson out there, I'd be a little more concerned. But I like what I see from Connor overall in the slot, even though in preseason he struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
And he needs to be a better tackler. I mean, that's just, that was the knock on Shamari Connor coming out of college was he's not the best tackler.
Sure.
And there were times where he came in in preseason games that he was making the tackle, but there were a couple of times when he came up to throw a shoulder and just hit the guy, and the guy stayed up and kept running. And it's like, dude, come on. Or went to go and bring the guy down and didn't do it, or took a bad pursuit angle and didn't bring him down.
Which we saw in the preseason.
Yeah, so we've seen that from Shamari Connor in the preseason. I didn't see it as much from him last year. So I still have the faith that, all right, I'm going to go more off what we saw his rookie year when he was playing in the game rather than what it looked like at times in the preseason.
Yeah.
Unless he's more overexposed now as being the starting slot where McDuffie was the starting slot corner.
Sure.
And now Shamari Connor is playing, if he's the slot, it's going to be 80, 90% of the snaps. That's their base defense now is really nickel.
Yeah. Again, we've seen Watson and Williams play really good football last year in NFL regular season and postseason games. And all of a sudden, we're all panicking.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's more injury related than any sort of actual talent. Again, Watson had surgery. He's trying to knock the rust off. Williams, again, with the hammy. Najee Johnson perpetually injured. We have not seen Najee Johnson in many NFL actual games. I guess I'm less worried about Watson and Williams than most, outside of injury, of course.
Yeah.
But you're right. It just feels like even the coaching staff's not thrilled, which I don't understand. It's like when you see these guys play good football. Josh Williams was ranked very highly even by PFF last year. It's crazy. Yeah. But all of a sudden, OTAs, training camp, preseason rolls around, injuries, of course, too. But when they're out there, they haven't looked good. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to view it. I don't know if it's a Spags is basically trying to put them in uncomfortable situations in the preseason, so that makes them look worse. I don't know if it's a case of game time rolls around, they get the adrenaline flowing, and all of a sudden they look better. But the fact that even in training camp, they're talking about maybe not knowing where to be or the playbook and no one's showing out, that tells me more than the preseason. Preseason doesn't tell me a lot with these guys. It's training camp.
Yeah, and I would. And maybe it's just watching Patrick Mahomes over the years. That last year felt odd in the Chiefs having somewhat of a middle-of-the-pack offense, especially scoring offense, and such a good defense last year that felt weird. It felt odd that the Chiefs just couldn't simply say, you know what, we're going to go score.
Yeah.
We're going to get the ball and we're going to go score. When they had to, they did in the Super Bowl. When they had to pick up first downs at the end of the Ravens game, they did. It's people were like, oh, the Chiefs had only 17 points against the Ravens. They did end the game in scoring position. They did end the game where Butker would have put it through the uprights. They just didn't need another first down at that point. Now, if you say, well, if they needed a field goal, do the Ravens play it the same way that they did against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs pick up the first down, and they're playing so close, and then you can hit MVS over the top because everybody's at the line of scrimmage to stop the run? Okay, I get it. But they needed to in the Super Bowl, and they did it twice. Went down, got the field goal, almost a touchdown, went down, got the touchdown, and won the game in the Super Bowl. When they had to have it, the offense stepped up and played well. And in the second half, offense stepped up and played well. This year is going to feel different. It's going to feel more like, at least I think, it's going to feel more like what we're used to with Patrick Mahomes because he's going to have more weapons. I think the offense is going to be much improved. I think the offense is going to be back to scoring lots of points. I think Mahomes is going to put up crazy numbers this year. I think the wide receiver group is going to be a strength of this team and not a negative on this team. I think the offensive line can be improved. I think they're better at the running back position with Pacheco and Steele than they were with Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year. But they may need that because if the defense takes a step back, the offense needs to take a step forward to be top 10, top 5 offense this year. They were number 1 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know that they get back to that, but they're going to be way closer to that. They're going to be much closer to 2022 offense than they were 2023 offense. And the defense may be closer to 2022 than it was 2023 because even if L'Jarius Sneed was on this team, there was going to be a level of taking a step back because there's no way you can expect L'Jarius Sneed to repeat the season he had last year to do that again this year.
And that's such a great point. And that was one that I tried to make time and time again. The Chiefs' defense last year was a top 3 defense, top 5 by every metric, top 3 by most.
Great.
I think you're probably looking at a top 10 defense, maybe top 12. I think it's definitely better than average. But I think last year was almost everyone playing to the precipice, the pinnacle of these guys' ability. Can they do it back to back? You'd like to hope so. And maybe you can make the case that, Nick Bolton's healthy, but he's still banged up, and you lost L'Jarius, you lost Willie Gage. I think if you see around a top 10 defense, 9, 10, 11-ish, that range, that's where I see this defense.
Yeah.
So it is a step back, a slight step back. But I think the offense takes a drastic step forward. I think you're looking at a easy top 5 offense, probably top 3. I think however the Ravens, you want to bust that offense down. However you want to break down the Miami Dolphins, but that atrocious defense they have. I think obviously Houston has a really good offense, and you can make the case for San Fran, right? I think you're looking at about 5 teams that you're saying might have the top offense. The Chiefs will be in that top 5, probably in the top 3.
I think there are only 2 teams in the AFC that going into the season, I would say they have a better offense than the Chiefs. And that's Miami and Houston. And you can make an argument, Houston and the Chiefs, but I think those are the 2 teams that I wouldn't push back on. If somebody said the Bengals, I'd push back on the Bengals. If somebody said the Ravens, I'd push back on the Ravens.
Agreed.
Whoever else, I would offer Bills. I'll push back on the Bills having a better offense this year than the Chiefs going into the season.
I don't know, man. If you listen to Sean Payton, it might be the Broncos.
Yep, I know.
They got rid of Tim Patrick too.
Bo Nix, Zach Wilson. I mean, who knows? I mean, those guys. You're kind of choosing between Montana and Young at that point with those guys back there. I mean, who do you go with? I'm not sure.
The young Montana.
Yes, Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes. Who do you choose? With Zach Wilson and Bo Nix. I'm not sure.
Tyler Bray.
It's a different
Tyler Bray.
It's Tyler Bray or Brady Quinn.
It's tough.
Is it Damon Hewitt or Brady Quinn? Who's going to start this year? Those are big decisions. But I'd be perfectly fine if somebody says Miami and Houston are better offenses entering the 2024 season than the Chiefs. Great. I'm not going to agree with the Bengals, the Ravens, or the Bills. Chiefs have a better offense than those teams do because they have the better quarterback out of all of them. They have a better offensive line than the other 3. And with the unknown with losing Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon not there in Cincinnati, no tight end that they really have a weapon with, where the Chiefs have the same running game in Pacheco. They have a much improved wide receiving core, and they've got Travis Kelce. The Ravens lost 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. One guy returning is a guy that's played like 16 games in 3 years, and Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah.
They lose Odell Beckham Jr., and they replace him with Nelson Aguilar. Mark Andrews is healthy, so that's a difference than when the Chiefs played the Ravens at the end of the season last year. And the Bills...
They added Derrick Henry.
Yeah, right, absolutely. They added Derrick Henry. And that matters from Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell and Justice Hill. And
especially for how the Ravens operate offensively.
Sure. Yeah,
if
matters.
It's a pass-heavy offense, I don't think Henry fits in very well in Miami, for example. I don't think that made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But him with the Ravens, defensive ends are going to be having a hard time.
Although I think Mike McDaniel would get a lot out of Derrick Henry with his running game scheme.
Also a good point. Yeah, you're right.
But I mean, like, if like Buffalo, they lose Gabe Davis, they lose Stephon Diggs, they get Keon Coleman. Okay, we'll see how good Keon Coleman is. I think Dalton Kincaid's going to take a big step forward this year as a tight end.
He's really good.
I think teams stopped respecting James Cook's ability to be more of a power runner, and those numbers started to come back to the pack a little bit when teams were saying, we're not going to let you bounce it outside. We're not going to let you use your speed. We're going to funnel things inside, and he was different at that point. And they had the healthiest offensive line last year. 97% of their snaps that were taken last year were taken by their starting offensive line, the Buffalo Bills, last year. Can you expect that much health again for their offensive line? I mean, back-to-back years getting that lucky. There's some luck that goes along with health like that. A guy falls the wrong way, steps the wrong way. It's just unfortunate. It's part of the NFL. So, yeah, I think they're going to take a step back. And midway through the season, we might have different opinions as to what we're seeing, right? oh, the Ravens' offensive line is amazing. They had to replace 3 guys, but those guys are looking good. And Derrick Henry's completely changed the face of this, and Zay Flowers has stepped up and is number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Okay, that may be the case halfway through the season. I'm talking about specifically right now, 8 days before the season starts, there are 2 teams that I'll listen to and agree with if you say are better offenses than the Chiefs going into this season in the AFC.
Yeah.
Because I think the 49ers have a case. I think the Packers have a case.
I can't get there. I can't get there with
the Packers have a
with
case.
Jordan Love. I need to see.
Well, it's not Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes, but their running game's better. The offensive line's pretty good. They do have a number of weapons on the outside.
But they don't have any elite weapons at wide. They have a lot of almost what Kansas City has this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think any of those wide receivers I'd say are better than Hollywood Brown. I don't know how many of them are even better than Rashee Rice, but they have a lot of guys to throw at you. And they all have different skill sets. You know, Romeo Dobbs, Tavion Wicks, Christian Watson. I mean, they have a lot of good wide receivers, but they don't have that, like, in my opinion, like game-changing elite wide receiver.
This is a team that came into my mind when I'm just trying to think of different teams, maybe in the NFC that would be there.
Eagles,
that
you can make a
maybe
case.
Green Bay. Eagles,
if they stay healthy,
absolutely. Eagles, yes.
because if one of their wide receivers gets hurt,
no, I think the Eagles would be up there certainly because they've got stud wide receivers.
Saquon Barkley coupled with
Dallas Goedert should be better than what he is. Like, it seems Dallas Goedert looks like a guy that could have 900 yards receiving and 11 touchdowns.
Well, he's had some unfortunate injuries too of the face mask that.
But also, it just feels like Jalen Hurts doesn't ever want to throw to him. Like it's like Sirianni has to scheme a play to get Dallas Goedert the ball, and he's pretty good.
They moved on from Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Because they had the faith in Dallas Goedert, who, again, I'm with you. I think Goddard's a very good tight end that just does not get used as much.
Lions. I'll listen to the Lions being a better offense than the Chiefs.
Their offensive line's top.
Offensive line's
top
stud.
2.
Gibbs is so good. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Laporta.
Sam Laporta is pretty damn good, and Goff is good enough. So
I wouldn't say better, but I would entertain it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
for me specifically, I'm a huge. The game is won and lost a lot more than fans realize in the trenches.
Oh yeah,
like that's the reason why Detroit's turnaround happened. It wasn't just Amon and Dan Campbell and so that the pieces. It was the offensive line. The offensive line went from horrendous to one of, if not the best offensive line in football. It gave Jared Goff time. That's why Jared Goff looks so much better now than he did in part with the Rams. As great as a head coach Sean McVay was, that offensive line at times was atrocious. The Lions' offensive line is, again, I think the best in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown is great, but I don't think I could quite say better than the Chiefs. I would say they're in a tier down, in my opinion.
I'll throw another team in there, not saying they're better, but in the conversation, the Rams. With Kupp and Nakua and Kyron Williams, along with Goff.
Who's now doing punt or kick returns?
Well, he did last year, too. Like, I know Rams fans are a little nervous. Well, fantasy football fans are a little nervous about that. Okay, why is Kyron Williams returning punts? It's like, well, he started off as a punt returner last year, and then they slowly moved him out of being a punt returner.
And they did draft Blake Corum, right?
Yeah, right. People love Blake Corum. But because you've got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua, Higbee's okay. He's
fine.
He's fine. He's not terrible. Higbee sort of reminds me of like a Hunter Henry. It's like not terrible, but not great. Just an average to maybe sometimes above average. Every once in a while, like, wow, Higbee had 70 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Oh, that's pretty good. Higbee had 1 target.
Yeah,
pretty
good.
Pretty good.
Is that old school?
No, that is.
What is that?
Larry David. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That would be a good.
Pretty good.
What's the category on Sports and Leisure with the catchphrases?
That'd be a catchphrase.
Pretty
good.
good.
Larry David, pretty good. It's two pretties.
I feel like
two pretties.
They do that in old school, or I could be. I've been wrong.
Going through the old school Rolodex, and I don't remember that being a line in that
Frank
movie.
the Tank. We're all streaking. Everyone's doing it.
Right from the
quad to the gymnasium.
So so get in. Okay.
Hey, Frank, a little cold?
Anybody else that we think maybe like in that conversation? Because I think we came up with Dallas.
It's just CeeDee Lamb and Dak.
Yeah,
their offensive line's
I think
back.
Ferguson's pretty good. I think Ferguson
pretty good, but
has a chance to show that he's a little bit better.
He's on the cusp of being a top 10 tight end, but I don't.
But I don't like Zeke. He's old. Zeke's got the Rico Dowdle. Or Dowdy Dowdle, whatever.
Deuce Vaughn?
Deuce, baby.
They brought Dalvin Cook onto their practice squad, supposedly.
I know, saw that, yeah. So that tells you how much they're searching.
Yeah.
Is that Dalvin Cook is signing in Dallas. But, yeah, in the AFC, I'll listen to Houston and I'll listen to Miami. But if you want to argue Baltimore, I'm going to push back. You want to argue Cincinnati, I'm going to push back. You want to argue Buffalo, I'm going to push back. That's not the case. You want to argue the Jets, offensive line, we'll see. They got some studs. Breece Hall is amazing, and Garrett Wilson is amazing.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers, when he's healthy, is one of the best throwers of the football that we've ever seen.
When were his back-to-back MVPs? They weren't that long
20
ago.
and 21. Because Mahomes was 18, Lamar Jackson was 19, and then 20 and 21, Mahomes was 22,
20 and 21,
Lamar Jackson
yeah.
was 23.
I mean, that's only a
It's when they
couple years
drafted
ago,
Jordan
yeah.
Love. They drafted Jordan Love in 20, and Aaron Rodgers went on a Bleep U tour. Hold on, you're going to draft my replacement? No, I'm going to be the MVP.
Dog,
Then I'm gonna be the
48
MVP next year.
touchdowns and 5 interceptions is just absurd.
Yep. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. And ESPN surveyed 103 NFL players from 25 teams. So 103 players got back with them with the survey from 25 teams about the quarterbacks in the NFL. Who's the best quarterback? Who's the most overrated, most underrated, best trash talker? Who's the GOAT quarterback? Is it Brady? Is it Mahomes? We'll talk about some of the results that came from ESPN's story on the 103 players that were surveyed around the NFL. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer at 1 o'clock, KSHB 41 Sports Director. ESPN put out a survey to NFL players on condition of anonymity so they could respond honestly. And 103 players replied, covering 25 teams. And the questions that ESPN asked said players: who's the GOAT, Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady? They asked them to rank the quarterbacks. So if you put a quarterback, top three, if you put a quarterback at number 1, he gets 3 points. Number 2, 2 points. Number 3, 1 point.
How the Olympics should work, but yeah.
That's right. So top 3 quarterbacks. Which rookie will have the most successful career, not just first season, but the most successful career? Then they had most overrated quarterback, underrated quarterback, and biggest trash talker around the league. And the results came in. Who's the GOAT, Mahomes or Tom Brady? 85 players voted Tom Brady. 7 of them voted Mahomes, and then they just list several other players received votes, but not the actual players. So several other people voting are dumb.
The fact that they're already, you said 7 votes for Mahomes?
7 current NFL players voted Mahomes as the GOAT.
The fact there's already 7 players, and Mahomes is, how old is he now?
He's 27.
The fact that he's 28.
Stop it.
Almost 29.
No, stop it. He's never going to – he's not going to age past 27. 27 is the oldest he will be, and you can't convince me otherwise.
The fact Mahomes is 28 years old and 7 people in the NFL think that he is the greatest of all time.
Yeah, 7 NFL players.
Yes,
think
yes.
That. Here's what a couple of them wrote. Said, no disrespect to Tom, but I'm taking Pat. One said one NFC South player. Pat can do everything Tom can do, and he's also mobile. They said the vast majority, however, chose Brady with the challenge that Mahomes has to match or beat his number of rings. Another NFC South player said Mahomes is on his way, but he's not there yet. You can't disrespect Tom Brady. He's got 7 rings. It's a long way to go. Another AFC South player who chose Brady said Mahomes is on track to be the best ever. He's just got some of those skills that you can't teach. So he's on track to be. Right now I'm saying it's Brady.
Yeah.
Mahomes is on track.
Which is exactly how I would say that as well. That's perfect.
Me too. But you're right. 7 NFL players currently playing say that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest of all time quarterback. They were asked to rank the top 3 quarterbacks, current quarterbacks. And first place got 3 votes, as we said. Second place got 2. Third place got 1. Patrick Mahomes came in first. It's shocking because the NFL's top 100, Lamar Jackson, was ranked ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes got 291 points. Lamar Jackson got 124. And then Joe Burrow came in at number 3 with 51 votes. 51 points in the votes. So Mahomes more than doubled Lamar Jackson's points as to who the best quarterback is in the NFL. Which, whatever the top 100 was, who knows? So many different players came out and said those things are worthless. Mitchell Schwartz talked about that guys will just write in their friends' names and just send it back. Some guys will put like 2 players. Some guys will put only their teammates. This is 103 players that responded specifically to these questions, not just rank your top 20 NFL players.
Yeah.
It's a little more difficult to rank the top 20 NFL players in your mind that you don't have a list of, here are the list of the people that we think would be in contention. Hey, who's the best current quarterback? Okay, well, I can think of the best current quarterbacks right now. So Mahomes, Jackson, and not Jackson Mahomes. Mahomes, then Lamar Jackson. Then Joe Burrow was number 3. And then the other top vote getters coming in at number 4 was Josh Allen, and number 5, Aaron Rodgers. So this is the top 5 quarterbacks as voted by the players. I guess not a surprise. Lamar Jackson being number 2 is not a surprise. Patrick Mahomes being number 1 is not a surprise. The question is always, to me, after that, like, is it Josh Allen? Is it Joe Burrow? I would go Joe Burrow number 2, or Josh Allen number 2, Lamar, then Joe Burrow.
Yep, agreed.
Or even Burrow further down. But I certainly would have Josh Allen above Joe Burrow.
I don't think anyone's ever had more, I don't want to say given to them, but been given more credit for a single victory in the playoffs, a single win, than Joe Burrow. Because he's the only guy, really, outside of Tom, who's beaten Mahomes in the playoffs. For some reason, it's just, oh, well, okay. Well, he did it once, so Joe Burrow has to be the second-best quarterback in the NFL. No one's gotten more run off of that one game than Burrow.
Mm-hmm. And he's also a guy that late in games, he didn't come through. I mean, in the Super Bowl, they had a lead. In the last, 4 possessions that they had a lead, they didn't score. And then the Rams take the lead and win. The Bengals and Joe Burrow got the ball 3 times with the score tied at 20 in the AFC Championship game. They got no points. Mahomes led his team down there. Dumb penalty, but you know what? Be smart.
He could have scored earlier, and then it wouldn't have really mattered.
But he had those opportunities. He didn't come through. And, while he came through in the second half in the AFC Championship game the year before, we've seen him when it's late and the game is on the line, or not even on the line, an opportunity to extend a lead. Burrow hasn't come through.
Yeah.
Mahomes always comes through
outside
in
of
those
once.
situations. Yes, you're right.
Against the Bengals.
Against the Bengals. That's the one time, although they did go down and get the field goal when they had to get the field goal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree. But that was the worst half of football
Agreed.
Mahomes has played in his life.
I think in his life. Maybe going back to like Pee Wee football.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he played a worse half then. Which rookie quarterback will have the best career? This was close. Number 1 was Caleb Williams with 34 points, and number 2 was
Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons with 30 points, actually. Yeah, Jaden Daniels with 30 points. McCarthy got 10. Michael Penix got 8. And Bo Nix got 8. I would have, the top 2, not a surprise. I would have thought Michael Penix would be closer to Jaden Daniels than he is being tied with Bo Nix with 8.
I think it's partial. No Drake May, by the way.
Right, yeah.
Part of that has to be the fact that they don't know when he's going to take over the starting gig.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins' 4-year contract, they can get out of it after 2. But that's probably at least some factor there.
Yeah.
I would have gone Jaden Daniels personally. I'm just a huge fan of what
too.
he could do in the NFL.
Yep, I like Jaden Daniels. I think he'll be better than Caleb Williams career-wise. We'll see. Because we've seen players come into the NFL and make some crazy plays and be like, you know what, that's Mahomes-esque.
Yeah.
Right, it is. But we have never seen Caleb Williams in the playoffs. We haven't seen Caleb Williams with the game on the line. That's where Mahomes has already separated himself from other really talented players. We know Mahomes has the arm. We know he's got the accuracy. We know he's got the pocket presence. But he also has the innate instinctual ability that when his team has to have it, they get it. Caleb Williams had some Mahomes-like plays in the preseason. But when his team has to have it in a regular season game, I don't know how he's going to respond. If the team is struggling, how is he going to respond?
Yeah.
If guys are dropping passes, how is he going to respond?
Yeah.
I doubt they're going to be dropping passes because they have given him plenty of weapons around him. DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Roma Dunze.
Every opportunity.
Yes. Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett. Like they got some guys, right?
Yeah.
But I like Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix are guys that I think Michael Penix is going to be really good. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be really good. And I think Caleb Williams might be the most talented of them all.
Yeah.
But we'll see when push comes to shove. Most overrated quarterback. So the overrated and underrated quarterback is interesting to me because there's so much of a overlap between the two. Josh Allen led all votes as the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. Number 1 overrated quarterback, Josh Allen.
Silly.
I think that's dumb. I would have gone Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa are tied at second with 10 votes behind Josh Allen. But the rest of the players getting votes, Justin Herbert got 9, Trevor Lawrence got 8, Deshaun Watson got 7, Kyler Murray got 6, and Brock Purdy got 6.
I understand Herbert and Lawrence, by the way, too.
I do too, but I am surprised Joe Burrow's not on there.
Sure.
Like not getting votes. And then the underrated quarterback, we just mentioned Purdy and the overrated. Underrated, Purdy. Stafford, number one. Like you've got this conflicting, like Purdy's underrated. No, he's overrated. No, he's underrated. No, he's overrated. Kirk Cousins underrated. Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Bryce Young, some of the guys that are underrated. And then the biggest trash talker, as voted on by the players, Josh Allen got 26 votes for the biggest trash talking quarterback. Baker Mayfield came in second, Aaron Rodgers third, Patrick Mahomes fourth.
If you saw Josh Allen's Twitter account, he's loving it.
He loves it.
He's digging it.
He didn't mention anything about being overrated. But he did mention that he's loving the fact that he was voted the biggest trash talker. But that same thing, before you get to biggest trash talker, you go to overrated before that, and it's Josh Allen.
Part of me wonders, does he trash talk so much that people now are mad at him, so they label him overrated?
Actually, you know what? The tweet is even better because it's going along with the overrated. The tweet goes, so you're telling me I was voted the number one ... best trash talker? Let's go! Because the story from this was Josh Allen was voted the most overrated quarterback.
I like Josh, man. We had a chance, out in Tahoe.
Yeah.
He's just a fun guy. Like, he's so easy to root for.
Yeah.
I'll always be a Josh Allen fan.
I like him.
And tweets like that show more of his personality.
So I was the number one best trash talker? Let's go! Heck yeah! What's everybody talking about overrated stuff
You
for?
think Joe Burrow's making that tweet?
No, he's dyeing his hair. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Wrapping up this hour next.
It's Dylan Michaels here, and I can't say enough about my friends over at Greenlight Dispensary, and I'm telling you, they always have the best deals. And if you're not a customer at Greenlight already, then I'm telling you, you are missing out on the number one rated dispensary in the state of Missouri, and also the number one rated loyalty program in the state of Missouri as well, because the cash you spend in store also racks up in your wallet as points to be used later on other products. And these points rack up fast. It feels like after I spend points on a product, I have more waiting for me the very next week. And at Greenlight Dispensary this month, they're doing the summer reload, and you can bundle and save with products as high as 50% off, and you can check out their new bundles at greenlightdispensary.com. And this week for the August reload, Greenlight's continuing to give away their silver and gold strain eighths for 2 for $40 and platinum eighths again for 2 for $50, but they're adding synth eighths as well for 2 for $50. So go online and take advantage of those deals today while they still last, and use their AI bud tender to shop around and see if there's anything else that you might like. And when you check out, you can select whether you want to pick it up through the drive-thru or the grab-and-go window to save you time. So again, go online to greenlightdispensary.com, and then when you check out, select one of their 4 Casey area locations that's closest to you. They have Bannister Road in 435, Nolan Road in Independence, 135th and State Line is my location, and they have a Harrisonville location as well. Or you can go online and check.
on their roster. The end of Kadarius Toney in Kansas City. We'll see how the practice squad starts to fill out when guys are clearing waivers, what it means for Justin Ross, what it means for Nico Remigio. A number of other guys that the Chiefs waived that may be back with the Chiefs on practice squad deals, whether that be Echo Boydo or Keith Taylor or who knows? Who else? We know Deion Bush has re-signed with the Chiefs for their practice squad. He was a vested veteran, so he did not have to clear waivers. So Deion Bush was released yesterday. He is back with the Chiefs today. And the Chiefs, in a little bit of a surprise, going 26 offensive players, 24 defensive players. It is the first time going back to 2019 when Steve Spagnuolo took over on defense, looking at how the Chiefs have set up their offensive and defensive numbers 25-25 typically every single year. I say typically, but it has literally been every single year 25-25 except for 2022. They kept 26 on offense and 24 on defense. But they did that because they had to keep Blake Bell on the roster so he could then be placed on IR designated to return. So they cut Elijah Lee because he was a vested veteran. And so it was 26 offense, 24 defense. And then after the 53-man roster was made official, they placed Blake Bell on the IR and signed Elijah Lee. That made it 25-25. This is the first time that there hasn't been some sort of roster manipulation like that to get somebody on the IR to have the uneven numbers of 26-24 instead of 25-25. RG3 weighs in. You know, he was doing a media round and a podcast with, I think it's Sterling Holmes? Sterling Holmes? I'm not really sure. But RG3 was asked by, I'm reading here, Sterling Holmes, about the evolution of Patrick Mahomes.
Well, Sterling, at that point, Mahomes still, I think he had Tyreek Hill at that time when we played against them. And his process was different then, right? He had Travis Kelce. That's the guy that's, working the whole middle of the field. They're on like their own wavelength, running different routes. We saw it in the Super Bowl when they pulled off and we saw it in the big comeback when they pulled off the win against the Bills. But when he had Tyreek Hill, it was a little bit different. There was a little bit of Tyreek's open down there somewhere, right? I'm going to just throw this bad boy as far as I can. And now that he doesn't have Tyreek, his process has changed so much that he's actually become a better quarterback, right? He's reading the defenses better. He's getting through his progressions better. He's being okay with taking whatever the defense allows him to have while also still having that special ability that he has to make things happen out of nowhere. So when I watched him at that point, we had the better team, hands down, top to bottom in Baltimore. We just didn't have Patrick Mahomes. And even though we had them down, I think it was a play, tell me if I'm wrong, but it was fourth down. He threw one up over the middle and Tyreek Hill caught it on his helmet or something. And it was like, how did he do that? How did he pull that off? That's what you constantly see, especially with the behind the back pass we saw in the preseason from Mahomes. He's just grown so much, and it's always been a joy to watch him play, but to see him grow from Texas Tech to what he is now is pretty amazing.
The process thing is interesting because, there was the fun meme and the narrative of bleep it, Tyreek down there somewhere, right? And Aaron Ladd dropping the actual curse word in the postgame to Patrick with the F it, Tyreek down there somewhere. But that gets so overblown, as in Mahomes was taking the snap and his first read wasn't there and then tucking in and running around and just launching it up to Tyreek Hill. How many of those plays do we remember happening where he just threw it as far as he could and bleep it Tyreek down there somewhere?
Ask the Raiders week 2, 2019. The second quarter.
Right. They scored, 28 points in that particular quarter. Demarcus Robinson had a couple touchdowns there.
Tyreek was injured.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer next. Jason Anderson with you, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer hanging out with us, KSHB 41 sports director. Hi,
guys.
Mick.
Hey, good to see you. What's going on?
Not much. There's some news in the NFL.
There is some news
for those that want to hear the news in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs have brought in 2 different players that will be a part of their 53-man roster. So there will be more moves to make before their official 53-man roster, I guess, gets ready for the Baltimore Ravens next week. The Kansas City Chiefs have claimed defensive back Eric Scott from waivers. The Dallas Cowboys released him. They have signed Eric Scott, Baser Linwood kid, local kid that's now playing for the local team. So a cool story there. Eric Scott has been claimed by the Kansas City Chiefs. So there's a defensive back. Is that Nick Jones? Is that Chris Rowland Wallace, who is now
it
off
a
the
defensive
team?
back? Is it some other position?
I mean, maybe because they have 24 defensive players and 26 offensive players.
And that's what sparked you talked about that. I didn't know that it had always been even for the most part.
25 and 25.
And so I have to wonder, maybe with the P. Ryan move and this, maybe they lose an offensive lineman.
The what move?
Oh, sorry.
What happened? Who is that?
You didn't see him yet? Sorry, I was looking at Eric Scott stuff.
No, I was burying the lead. Isn't that typically what you do in sports radio?
That's what you
Yeah, you wait till the last segment when you only have like 2 minutes left to get to the real meat and potatoes. Before that, you talk about movies, just randomly. The Kansas City Chiefs have signed veteran running back Samaje Perine. I don't know who that is bad news for. Besides bad news for the Bears, we know bad news for the Toros is when they bad news Bears. But so their 53-man roster, they've added 2 players to that 53-man roster, a defensive back and a running back. So they're going with 4 running backs, unless they stay with 3, and that's the end of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because it's not going to be the end of Carson Steele, because Carson Steele's listed as the second running back.
They didn't list him as fullback? I haven't seen the official. I saw some others that listed, 2 running backs and Steele as fullback. But again, that wasn't official, and I don't know if that matters.
At the 53, and it just says running backs, Edwards-Helaire,
Gotcha.
Pacheco, and Steele. It doesn't say fullback. I know there have been a number of people that have differentiated that 2 running backs, 1 fullback. At Chiefs.com, they're not really doing that. But Samaje Perine has been signed by the Chiefs. I hated Perine when he was with the Bengals, but I like him as a player. I liked him. I hated him because I liked him. And I made the point a couple of years ago when Joe Mixon, whether Joe Mixon was injured or going to miss a game, I can't remember what the details were, but I made the point on the air that week that I'm more worried about Samaje Perine for the Bengals in the backfield than I was Joe Mixon, because Perine seemed to always hurt the Chiefs on third down, whether that be screen passes or a check down, and he is one of the best pass protectors from the running back position in the NFL.
And so, not to be confused, this is not LaMichael Perine, who has been with the Chiefs
That's
before
right.
and kind of been on that border of active and practice squad guys. This is Samaje Perine, his cousin. They're cousins.
Right.
But the more successful of the two, I think, in the NFL.
And the Chiefs are just waiting for another Perine to come into the league so they can grab him too.
This is the Oklahoma Perine. LaMichael, I believe, was the Florida Perine.
Yeah, this was the Samaje, 300
and
yards rushing.
He likes his Sooners, man.
He likes his Perines.
His Perines likes his Sooners.
And his Sooners, that's true. But I like this move. When the Broncos released him, I was in my mind, I'm like, is that a guy they go and sign? Or, well, they got 26 offensive players. I mean, do they bring in another offensive player? Now you might have to drop 2 offensive players to get down to 25 if it's 25 and 25. I don't know if it makes sense. They like Edwards-Helaire. If they bring him in and 4 running backs, they're not going to move on from Carson Steele. So does that mean one of these offensive linemen are then released? What happens with that? But they do sign Samaje Perine. It's a veteran guy, reliable, third down back. So if Edwards-Helaire isn't available and Isaiah Pacheco is, maybe you don't want to have him as a 3-down back every time.
Mm-hmm.
And on third down, you don't have to maybe rely on, maybe a Carson Steele as being a guy that would have to be in there for pass protection, that you can, put in Samaje Perine now on third downs. So
yeah, I know.
I like the move.
If you're McCole Hardman, or if you're a Is it Ethan Driscoll?
Ethan Driscoll,
maybe
CJ
that 10th
Hansen
guy on the offensive line. Or are you worried now because it's probably not going to be 27 and 23?
No, I get, but also because who's being released for Eric Scott, so they claim as again. I am really surprised Nick Jones made the roster. So maybe Nick Jones was the 53rd man, and they were looking for defensive back help, and they claim Eric Scott off of waivers, and that might be the end for Nick Jones or Roland Wallace. We'll find out which one it is, Roland Wallace or Nick Jones or somebody else. It just seems like if you're bringing a defensive back, you then move out a defensive back at that point. Whereas running back, you only have 3 right now. It's not going to be a 1-for-1 because who are you releasing? You're not going to release Carson Steele. He ain't making it through waivers. All right, there's no way Carson Steele is going to make it through waivers. You ain't releasing him.
I mean, what about the Hendershot kid? You bring him in and then put him down. Traded for him.
You traded for him. I mean, because he was going to be released and you were 32nd in waivers, so you didn't think you were going to be able to get him on a waiver claim, so you make a trade for him. Do you want to then let him clear waivers, put him on waivers, and maybe get him to the practice squad? Like, it's going to be interesting when they figure this thing out, especially when
I think it's a 10th offensive lineman going.
I do too. I think it's either Hansen or Driscoll, and the fact that Lucas Niang was not kept, can it be Ethan Driscoll and only go in with 3 tackles? I think it might be bad news for CJ
3.5 if you count Joe Tooney, who can move over there, right?
That certainly is true. I think it would be bad news for CJ Hansen. If Niang was on the team and Ethan Driscoll, then I would think, well, maybe it's bad news for Driscoll. But they only have 4 tackles right now. And, you don't want to go down to 3 with only being Wanya Morris, Jawan Taylor, and Kingsley, especially when Jawan Taylor's battled some injuries and Wanya Morris has a bone bruise. So I don't think that's the spot you want to have 3, as opposed to interior offensive line. Can you get by with 5? With Tooney, Creed, Trey, Caliendo, and Hunter Norzad. That's probably what you would go with. Unless the injury to Hollywood Brown isn't as bad as they thought, and you leave off McCole Hardman. And you go with 6, and Hollywood's back for week 2 or something like that. There's a lot of things. But when they released Samaje Perine yesterday, it was a name in my mind that I thought, maybe they bring him in, because one of the things the Chiefs feel like you absolutely have to have if you're a running back is to protect the quarterback. He's the best pass protection running back in the NFL for like 4 years running. Jerick McKinnon was up there really high, but it was like Perine and McKinnon, like 2 of the best running backs in pass pro. And third down, he would kill the Chiefs on third downs. Killed the Chiefs on third downs. It was so annoying. Now he's lost a step. He's not the Perine he was 2 years ago, just as McKinnon's not the same guy he was a couple of years ago. But you put him in the backfield and there's a blitz pickup, I feel good about Mahomes back there if Perine's in there to protect him. Or Pacheco as well. At times, Edwards-Helaire. I don't know about Carson Steele in an actual game yet when you're being game planned and scouted for. What's that? He was what?
He was a 81 PFF receiving grade last year too, as a pass catcher out of the backfield. So someone to keep in mind there.
Oh,
I know
he's a third down back.
It's hard for Mick because he went to Oklahoma, so you might have some.
We covered that earlier.
Some previous.
There's a lot of Sooners on this team.
There are, man. There are a number of Sooners, and
it's a different. It's not LaMichael Perine. It's the better of the 2 Perine.
It's the Samaje.
Well, and Samaje is getting up there, so he's kind of a boomer as it is when it comes to NFL running backs.
Oh man, he's 29. He's younger than me. That hurts. But I don't like when you say.
But he's an old 29.
He's getting up there. He looks older than he
well, yeah,
is.
Because
that looks
he's
like
got
a 45-year-old man. That's
yeah, it's like Dylan. He's got the bald head and the big beard. Dylan looks 42 with that.
He's 24.
That man has told me to get off his lawn thrice.
Samaje Perine does not like when people walk across the lawn.
That's what it looks like. I mean,
if you're walking across the field, you better take a more of an indirect route rather than a direct route. Need to look at the blocking grades for Samaje.
I couldn't find on PFF for some reason. The blocking grades were not showing up. Well,
last year wasn't as good. In 2022, his PFF blocking grade, pass blocking, was 73. Last year was 31, so it wasn't as good. Was not as good. But I mean, how much can you trust PFF for last year's 31? The 73 2 years ago, I think, is right on. I think it's right on about the 73 2 years ago. Last year, 31.
You can trust it when it says
sure.
good things about your
Just
guys
not
or bad
sure.
things about the other guys.
Yeah, I'm just
That's
not
when you
sure.
trust it.
Just not sure I can trust it with the 31. But he had a 73 the year before. Like I said, PFF knows what they're doing. They understand what they're grading. They have a great grasp on all of this stuff.
Well, they're probably the only ones grading that out, right? So it's not like we're going to compare it against 10 other charts.
That's right. Luckily, the teams aren't doing that, so you wouldn't really know the difference with that. Mick, you were up there on stage at the Kansas City Sports Awards banquet last night. Yeah. How about that? I'm seeing all these clips of Travis Kelce, and I'm like, who's that good-looking guy sitting next to Mick Schaefer? Oh, that's Travis Kelce. Oh, yeah. That was cool.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Kevin
thanks
Holmes
for letting
and
us know you were going to do that.
I didn't know I needed to. I thought it was such a big deal.
No, you need to text me before you're going to do those
we
things.
knew it was happening. We just didn't know that you were involved. And that's what it been.
There was nothing on the website about you being up there.
I got the script Monday night, so it was, I knew I was doing it for a while, but Monday came, I was like, oh, yeah. And no, it was great. Kevin Holmes and I hosted it. It was at the Mule Block Tower of the downtown Marriott. And it is such a cool event. Everything the Sports Commission does is so professional and so done up. And I know, look, there's maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 people working on that thing. When I got there at like 2 for rehearsals yesterday, Kathy Nelson, the president of the Sports Commission, she's up on stage. She is handling everything. She's talking to everybody from the hosts to the audio people to the people serving the steak or the chicken, all that stuff. I'm like, you get your hands dirty as president? She just rolled her eyes because she does. And so, like I said, there's maybe 10 or 12 people working on that thing. And it looks like there's maybe 1,000 because the videos are so good. It is such a professional thing. And they put that same professionalism and effort into those bids, right? When they're trying to get events here and all that. So now you see how the World Cup's coming here, how we get these championships to come to T-Mobile and come downtown, and how the Big 12 is stinger. Brett Yormark was there.
Yeah.
I mean, they got Travis Kelce to come to this last night. Monday night on the Daily Mail and on Entertainment Tonight, of course, they're all tracking his movement everywhere. They had him leaving Rhode Island, and Taylor stayed behind. And they said he had to get back to the Kansas City Sports Commission Awards on Tuesday night. I'm like, that's kind of a big deal. Steve Spagnuolo was there.
Mick Schaefer.
They did not. They left that. I imagine that was the last line. They needed space.
An angry message to the Daily Mail.
The Daily Mail.
He's got to make it to the Kansas City Sports Awards banquet hosted by 14-time Emmy-winning Mick Schaefer.
Do you have 14?
How is that not?
I have 14.
He's got 14.
Wow. Can I see him sometime?
Yeah, you can have one.
He gives them
when
away.
you have 14, you can just give some away.
Is it almost like the Dundies where?
No, they're bigger deals.
They're bigger deals.
Yeah, and I have a lot more. I don't know if anybody, not even like the Jim, got 14 Dundies. I don't think, or Dwight.
Not even Crocodile.
No.
No.
Good,
but it was cool, and Brett Yormark was there receiving an award.
Yeah.
Bill Hancock of the college football space, and he's such a great human being. So it was great. So Kevin would introduce the video. They'd come on stage to a song. Of course, Travis's song was "You Got to Fight for Your Right to Party." I know, it's crazy.
It wasn't Taylor Swift?
No, I think they said no on that. There's some questions. They had to be pre-screened.
No Taylor Swift.
No Taylor.
Stuff.
And you know what? In Kansas City, we're fine with that.
Yes, dude.
Right? We're fine with that.
Nationally, it's
we
going to be
know
Taylor
they're dating,
Swift.
and we're in Kansas City. We don't like to get in your business. So we talked behind the back pass. We talked little Happy Gilmore. We talked about him like, hey, you finally, what it took to get this award was to finally not have a 1,000-yard season. that's what it took.
He was the Sportsman of the Year winner. A couple of clips. Here he is talking with Mick
Shatner. Mitch Holthus.
Mick Schaffer. Mick Holthus. And talking about how crazy and his life and how it sort of came about over the last 2 years.
I mean, some of this stuff I can't even fathom. You know, it's doing SNL 2 years ago. I had no idea that I would even, that opportunity would even come across my desk.
Are you Chaz? Which one was the?
Oh yeah, I've been a few. Kurt Lightning was one of them. Kurt Lightning. Welcome to my dojo. I think it's really, just taking advantage of the opportunities that are at hand and not having like a set in stone end for yourself, just kind of being curious and being adventurous in the different career fields, knowing that football is gonna end for everyone except for Spags.
Oh, that you cut off My best line of the night was after that. I was like, Spags is like the Keith Richards of coaching, is he not?
That's pretty good. Pretty good line.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. I didn't cut it.
That's all right.
I didn't cut it. It was already in the system. Sorry about that.
He's so good with the mic in his hand, and he just went off and he obviously has a lot of different things pulling him in different directions, and for him to carve out time for that award was pretty cool.
And delivering the line of like, Kurt Lightning, welcome to my dojo, and then immediately goes on.
What
I thought you were going to bring up Sucre Waladowski.
That's who I was thinking of. I was thinking, I thought one of them was Chaz for whatever reason. That's why I said Chaz. And
Sucre Waladowski.
Sucre.
And I watch from the corner.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of.
My name is Sucrewaldowski.
He had some great stories we were talking about. I was like, it's kind of surprising that Andy Reid's cool with this behind the back stuff, and he had a great story.
Well, let me.
Oh, you got it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this was in there as well. This is on the Andy Reid and the creativity and being okay with that stuff.
I'd say the most creative of the bunch is Andy Reid. So the more stuff that Coach Reid lets us do, the more you'll see out there on the field. But if we get that, come here. Don't ever do that again, son. That's when you know, all right, we've reached our limit. One of the funniest quotes, and like where I really like just was in a whole new world after talking to Andy Reid, was I pitched the ball back to LaShawn McCoy about 5 years ago. I think it was 2018 maybe.
That's a long
It was a long, yeah, exactly. And I came to the sideline and I kind of was looking at Coach Reid like, I know I shouldn't have done that, but it's kind of sweet, right? And Coach Reid just looked at me and he was like, imagine if we did that every play. I was like, what? You're up for that?
You're up for that?
Imagine
You're
if we
good. I'm
did
good.
that.
You good? I'm good. I'm
Imagine if
good.
we
Are you
did
good? I'm good with that.
Andy Reid to say, imagine if we did that every play, huh? You lateraling it together. No wonder Travis Kelce has been throwing laterals ever since then. That was 2019. It was week 4 when they went to Detroit and won that game.
Barely, too.
It
took
was
a 99-yard fumble return by Bashad Breeland, I believe, that helped.
When nobody knew the ball was just laying there, and Breeland looked down and was like, oh, football.
I'm just gonna go.
Let me pick it up and run. Everybody's like, what's he doing? What's that guy doing, huh? Weird. Why are the refs running with him? Did anybody hear a
we'll
whistle?
clean this up in replay.
Just let it go. Let it go. We'll figure it out in replay. Well, we can't really tell what happened. We're just going to go with the call on the field. No, I think that was actually a fumble. That one was actually knocked loose and a fumble. That was a confirmed on the field. And that was one of those, I think, a Patrick Mahomes fourth quarter comeback without throwing a touchdown. It's one of those
Byron
rare ones.
Pringle had a big catch towards the end on that final drive.
Caught it, got hit,
smoked.
and got spun around and hit again, and he held on to the ball. It's like, good God, man, what a catch by Byron Pringle. That amazing lateral from Travis Kelce.
Well,
was like
Byron Pringle
12.
was just down there somewhere. He just heaved it.
That's what they say.
Byron Pringle's down there somewhere.
What would Aaron Ladd say?
I cannot say what Aaron Ladd would say.
But that was
What
like
would he
second.
say?
That was like second and
Tell you
long
in the
though.
break.
The lateral was second and long, and he hits Kelce, and Kelce turns around and sees McCoy and throws it to him, and they pick up like 40 yards on that play.
And that was a long lateral back. It wasn't like a quick little hook and ladder. It's a few yards away.
Love to hear that. Just imagining Andy Reid going, imagine if we did that every play, huh? How fun would this offense be? That's
His
oh my
brain's
God,
turning.
You're up for that? Reminds me of like Half Baked when Dave Chappelle was delivering weed to his girlfriend and she was trying to oh my God, you smoke weed too? Now we can share everything. She's like, no, I caught you. Oh, you're up for that too? Let's lateral it every time. This is amazing.
That was towards the end of the interview. At the end of each one of the interviews, I thanked them, shook their hand, congratulations. People applauded. I did the same thing with him. Turned to leave stage, and he still stands up, still has the mic in his hands, and delivers a 30-second address to the people of Kansas City and how this is his new hometown. And he considers this his home, and he loves the people here. And it was heartfelt and delivered perfectly.
Well, and the message too of him saying it was important for me to be here for this. You know, like, and obviously he didn't just leave his house and drive down the road.
Right.
He got on a plane from Rhode Island to be there. While everybody was back celebrating Blake Lively's birthday, you know, and I don't know if he had to leave early or if that was the birthday was celebrated on Monday night. Not really sure, but whatever. But yeah, you saw that Blake Lively's birthday with Ryan Reynolds
didn't see that.
Channing Tatum,
all the cool kids,
and all the cool kids were there.
They're
And
not
Travis
kids anymore. They're more like
they older.
probably my age. I'm not a kid.
No,
anymore.
they'll always be the brat pack.
I'm learning more about there's the New York famous actors and then there's the L.A. famous actors. Obviously, more I think that live in L.A., but I feel like the cooler crowd resides in New York.
Well, the Midwest actors like the Paul Rudds and Sudeikis.
Does he live?
No.
but
I'm
he's
saying
talking
where
about
they
where they
live.
live.
Oh, where they
now.
live.
Yeah, where they live.
I will say also pretty cool after signing a $100+ million podcast deal.
Yeah.
You know, so like, yeah, I'll come back and do
swing
this.
by.
Yeah, I'll swing by.
$100 million.
And he was in that front table, one of the front tables, and so Spags was before him, and he was kind of catcalling Spags, giving him a hard time, and from the audience, it was fun.
It's no audience interaction, okay? This is Matt Rife right now, okay? We're just specifically doing a Q&A up here. Thank you, audience members.
Well, I told Spags, I'm like, what about those In Spags We Trust t-shirts? I know you love those, right? He just shook his head. I'm like, Travis, the offense is wearing them. I think Travis got one underneath his shirt right now, his dress shirt, and Travis gets up to take off. And Spags like, no, don't take any clothes off, Travis. Don't do it. So it was a fun night.
And everybody else was like,
night.
thanks a lot, Mick.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Travis is going to take some clothes off.
Well, Spags said that. Spag told him not to. I'm like,
sorry.
Go
about
ahead.
that. My bad.
Why didn't you invite us?
I didn't have any invitations to give.
Not his party to invite.
I mean, the media was welcome there. You're part of the media, right?
Yeah, I wish you would have.
Why didn't you guys pay for a table?
Jason?
Oh, I was busy last night.
Yeah. Stuff going on.
My wife had to work late.
I was producing sporting, so.
Yeah.
Yes, he was producing
Lots of
sporting.
stuff going on.
The zone table would have just been me, and that's no fun for anyone.
Yeah.
I was finishing up building my own rope bat for little man.
That's cool.
Instead of spending $125 on it.
Hey, I've done that before, and then by the time you go and get all the stuff and all the gear and the hardware, like, wait, I spent $130 on this. Yeah,
$17.
There you go.
PVC pipe, rope, and pool noodle.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Same exact thing. Same exact thing. As
The
$120 rope bat.
The Victory Project in town, they won the an award, and part of their video was how they do blind soccer for kids with disabilities, and they'll play soccer, and the ball beeps so you know where it is. And so part of the deal, part of the bit was like, all right, Kevin and you were going to play some blind soccer on stage. And so we had the blindfolds on, and I was covering up my downstairs region the entire time. I did not
yeah, it's a good idea.
Did not trust Kevin or anybody else playing blind soccer. But it's fun.
No, it's a really good idea. Yeah.
They do it in regular soccer, so they
That is
cover it
true.
up. That's a move.
That is true.
It's like when you set a pick in basketball.
Oh yeah,
you got to
put them down there.
Yeah, I don't care about my chest. I care about down there.
True story.
Yeah. The one of my buddies, I saw him at the Royals game on Sunday. That his son participates in a wheelchair league with the Midwest Adaptive Sports, and it's what Victory Project
Very
does
similar,
for
yeah.
the people that are blind that are playing soccer, but he's playing basketball and softball, and it's really cool what they do to try to give some sort of normalcy just to play sports,
want to play
man.
some team sports, man.
Just want to play some sports, you know.
It's the best thing out there.
Yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, Victory Project got that award last night. Alea Finnegan, got
she
the
was
Sports
great.
Woman of the Year.
She was great. She came on stage, and we talked about her, participating for the Philippines in the Olympics,
That's right.
and about her floor routine. And it's like, I was like, Simone, is she a friend? She's like, yeah, she's a friend. I'm like, you got her cell phone number right now? Could you text her right now? Could you do that? She's like, yeah, absolutely, I could. And so they won.
Did she?
They won the national title in gymnastics last year. LSU
She
did.
went to LSU, right?
Yeah.
Did you talk about Livy Dunn?
I did not. I should have. I should have brought that one up.
Paul
Skeens, though, right? You know him.
You dating a professional baseball player? Is it just like everybody there? It's like the dance team and the football players.
Yes.
Is it sort of like the gymnastics team at LSU and professional baseball players? Is that what it is, or just her?
Yeah. Brett Yormark would not talk about UConn.
Why not?
I know. I was like, I got the horse's mouth right here. He did say that I asked him, like, hey, we've had Shaq and WWE and Nelly and Fat Joe, all these championships. What's the next act? He's like, coming soon. We're about to announce a huge act, a big one. I'm like, okay. But he didn't announce it. He just said coming soon. So brace yourselves for that.
Nickelback?
Pitbull?
Creed.
All three together.
Pitbull.
Gotta be
Dolly! Yeah, that would be so cool.
Pitbull.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Mr. Worldwide.
Who else could it be? You know, besides Pitbull.
You want to connect to these youngsters.
Yeah.
I'd like Reba.
Yeah.
I think.
McIntyre?
Yeah.
Dolly just opened up the library.
Dolly would be a big get.
That's a good one
for the young crowd.
The young crowd, for sure. Waylon Jennings.
Kenny. Any of the highwaymen who are still around.
Every one of them.
All the highwaymen. Yeah.
I mean, look, you can do some.
Chris Christopherson, right? I think that'd
That's
be
fine.
He's one of them.
Yeah.
That certainly
Willie
works.
Chris Gaines.
Willie.
Chris Gaines.
That's it.
That's it. That's the one.
Tracy Chapman.
You can get a 2-for-1 with that. You get Chris Gaines and Garth.
Who's the opener? Chris opens for Garth.
Or what if the big thing is Garth is taking on a third personality, and it's Todd Schmirkin. That's it. That's the third personality.
Yeah.
Conway
and
Twitty?
he actually does murder people when he goes on the road.
He does murder. Conway Twitty. Conway can be there too, just to get the younger crowd with these kids and their rock and roll music.
The Oak Ridge Boys.
Yeah.
Elvira.
Let's go.
That's right. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. I finished up last night the Connor Stallions Untold on Netflix. Watched the Steve McNair a couple of days ago on Untold. But during the rain delay, I was able to wrap up the Connor Stallions one. I want to talk a little bit about those. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone right after this. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. News of the day. The Chiefs have signed Samaje Perine, running back of the
We know him from
Broncos,
the Bengals. Yeah.
but from the Bengals is where most people know Samaje Perine from. And a third down back, a guy that has hurt the Chiefs in the past on third downs before, especially when the Chiefs lost in the AFC Championship game. He had that, 45-yard screen pass touchdown.
Buddy, I blocked that out.
That Shavarius Ward thought, I don't know that I need to tackle right here. I think I'm just going to sort of come near him and then watch him go by. And, I reached out. Oh, darn it. That's okay. We're up by 18. Not a big deal. It was a big deal. And then
Ward was still on the team that year? Was that maybe his last game with them?
Yep. And then they went and got McDuffie after that. But and then in Cincinnati, when the Chiefs kept getting the Bengals into third and long, and then Joe Burrow would just dump it off to Perine, and he'd pick up 11 yards. What in the hell is going on? I can't stand this guy. So he's now a Chief. We just don't know how the roster is going to shake out now because they claimed Eric Scott, Baser Linwood, local kid, off of waivers from the Dallas Cowboys. That's a defensive back. So is that bad news for Chris Rowland-Wallace or Nick Jones? I'm going to guess Nick Jones, but I don't know. And then what happens on offense when they add Samaje Perine to the 53-man roster and they go with 4 running backs? Unless they're going to move on from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I can't imagine they would waive Carson Steele.
I think they value Clyde on the field, and they like what he can do. They like his experience. They like his locker room attitude. He's popular with the teammates, but he's a huge question mark right now, right? With his sickness and the stuff he's going through, to where you have to have some other plan out there on the field and availability wise.
Yep. And so I think they'll go with 4 running backs. I just don't know what that does for the offense, if that's bad news for C.J. Hansen or Ethan Driscoll. I would guess it's bad news for C.J. Hansen because, again, if you cut Ethan Driscoll, now you have 3 tackles total, with 2 of those guys battling injuries here in the last couple of weeks in Wanya Morris and Jawan Taylor. So are you 8 days away from playing the Ravens? Are you going to have 3 total tackles on your 53-man roster?
Is Skyer McCole Hardman?
Right.
I mean, are they in jeopardy?
Because think about it, if Hollywood Brown's injury isn't as serious as maybe they thought, or maybe he's now projected to only miss 1 game, okay, well then now do you need 7 wide receivers?
Yeah.
If you weren't going to keep 7 before Hollywood's injury, and if maybe Hollywood isn't as injured as you thought or is going to miss as long and maybe only misses 1 game, well, then that's tough luck for McCole. You go get Perine, and you survive the first week of the season with only 6 wide receivers. I think you'll be able to get by with that, especially if you've got Sky and Carson Steele and other guys to return the kicks.
And Eric Scott, a great story. I think his little brother is still in high school at Baser, maybe just graduated. He's an outstanding player as well. I mean, he went to JUCO and then to Illinois State and then to Southern Miss.
Southern Miss, yeah.
So, I mean, he went JUCO, FCS, Group of 5, FBS, found his way onto an NFL roster. Now coming back to his hometown to play.
Now he's with the
world champs,
back-to-back world champions. I was joking earlier about Peyton Hendershot, that he was going to be cut by the Dallas Cowboys. Instead, he's now a part of the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's what a day it was for Peyton Hendershot yesterday. What a great day.
Trash and treasure, I guess.
I mean, right? I mean, it's not like the Dallas Cowboys suck, but he was going to be released. And so any team could have picked him up along the way. He could have gone anywhere.
Panthers could have came calling.
That's right. Yes. Which, hey, would have still been an NFL job. But instead, the Chiefs actually trade for you to bring on the 53-man roster to be a part of their team because they couldn't get you in the waivers. So what a day for him. And I joked about what a day for Amanda Hendershot.
Oh, she was tweeting away.
Oh, yeah.
And they have 4 kids
and now,
that are very young, it looks like.
Yeah, and now she gets to, her husband gets to be in the tight end room with Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
There you go. Maybe she gets to hang out.
I mean, that's a big day. That's a pretty big day. I don't know what Dak or Jake Ferguson. I don't know who Jake Ferguson's dating, but it may not be the same as Travis Kelce. I'm not sure. I don't want to discount Jake Ferguson's game, both on and off the field.
It's funny. It's funny how in the NFL, you like a guy, they're on your board, you just don't get him, but you're kind of always keep an eye on him. You're kind of always recruiting him, like it is in college now, where okay, a kid goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
the very next year you could get him. You got to stay in contact with him because you can just transfer right away, and the transfer portal has made that possible to where like you're never really done recruiting these guys. You're never really done having them on your draft board because they could end up your way someday.
The Untold series going on with Netflix. I've watched the Steve McNair and now the Connor Stallions that came out yesterday. Connor Stallions is the one that came out yesterday with Michigan and the cheating scandal, the sign stealing scandal.
That's a big one in that, like, all of the others that have come out, there has been a lot of time that's transpired.
100%.
This has got to be the quickest turnaround of scandal to documentary.
It's the first time he's talked. It's the first time he's done an interview since then. It is a little surprising they've done it this quick.
First time he's been paid for it, probably.
That's right. Because the story is still going on.
Yeah.
Like it's still developing, right? He just got the notice of allegations was a 3-year show cause for him, but that's the notice of allegations, so we'll see what ends up happening with that. I mean, but the Connor Stallions one, there was a lot of information that was in there, which was interesting. He agreeing to do this, it's obvious that he was presenting it, and I don't know if this was made sort of by him, where the Netflix Lacey Peterson was done by Lacey Peterson's family, and now Peacock has a Lacey Peterson and her husband. I can't remember his name.
Oh, really?
And that's from
Scott Peterson?
Yeah, Scott Peterson. It's from Scott's family that did the one on Peacock. So there's
Wow.
it's like when you come out with like Wyatt Earp and then Tombstone.
Right.
It's like you got two different versions of this particular movie.
So it's like Jefferson Airplane and Jefferson Starship.
That's exactly what I was saying. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
You got to use the music one for me. I'm
right,
not going to
absolutely.
understand that one.
But like Netflix has that. Like I don't know if this was more Connor Stallions and his say in this, because he did present himself as the victim in all of this stuff. Like he was just railroaded, and he has no idea what anybody's talking about. How could he possibly, be viewed as somebody tough evidence to sort of say, no, I just bought him tickets because he wanted to go to the game. That's pretty difficult to ignore. But
why is he on his phone getting these signs? Oh,
yeah.
He's interested in that. He loves doing that.
Oh,
for him.
What he said, he's like, well, it's kind of like when your aunt will send you a birthday present that you already have. You're like, yeah, okay, you're sending me this video of their signs, but I already have it. I'm not going to be rude and say, no, thank you, I already have it. So, yeah, they're sending me video. Like, why would they be videoing it all if you just bought them tickets just to go there? But it's like, it's so amazing that the college football now is doing what the NFL is doing. So they now have the electronic system to where you can communicate with the quarterback and the linebacker, which is the way it should have been done a long time ago. I mean, this whole like, oh, let's have this black banner in front of the signal so you can't see it, but then you can see it. Then you have people there who are writing things down because you can write them down. You can get all the signals off the game tape. You can get all the signals off the coaching tape. You just can't advance scout.
I like the cards of like one's a picture of like Harry Potter, another teddy bear, then a bolt of lightning, and then Sports Radio 810. But I was on one for Carney one time. They had a picture of me when I was doing high school roundup back in the day. I was on one of their cards. I loved it.
Was it a good play or bad play?
I don't know. I still don't understand those and how they work, honestly.
Yeah, it ended up being a fumble. It was weird. But it's like you're allowed to do all of those things to steal signs. That's okay. But you can't advance scout.
Yeah.
Really? Like that's where you're drawing the line? You can coaches film, TV, anything that's on video of the coaches sending in signals in the play, you can keep track of all of that. While the game's going on, you can keep track of all of that. But you can't go ahead of time to look at their signals. When, by the way, they would probably change their signals before they play you, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that sort of the thing, is that you would change those things up? Like, it just seems like it is typical NCAA to go this route. And it also is a good point that was brought up in that, he gets suspended before the Michigan State game, and Michigan still goes and wins all their games the rest of the way and dominates Michigan State and is just dominating other teams. And it's like, okay, so maybe it wasn't just the sign stealing. I think it's probably part of it, because they had video on the field against Ohio State where in the background you can see Ohio State signaling, and you can see in the background Connor Stallions, and that's the defensive coordinator, and then looks over at him and starts pointing in the air for pass, and the rest of the sideline's pointing in the air, and C.J. Stroud drops back and it's a pass. Or not C.J. Stroud, but who was quarterback this last year for the
For who?
For the Ohio State.
McCord, Kyle McCord.
Thank you, Kyle McCord. Yeah, drops back and it's like no, it was 2 years ago. I think it was.
So then it would have
So
been.
I think it was C.J. Stroud. Yeah, he looked over to the sideline, and they're pointing up in
You're
the
right.
air because he wasn't there for Ohio State this year.
Yep.
He was suspended for the Ohio State game. So it was 2 years ago. He's pointing up in the air, and they know it's a pass. They've got all these different things that they're signaling to the defense. Like, oh, that's why they were winning is because of him. But it is great sort of portraying as like, I'm the victim here. When I don't think it's that big of a deal that you're advanced scouting to steal signs when you're allowed to steal signs every other way except going to a game beforehand to steal signs. To figure that thing out.
Part of me is like, though, too, you got to draw a line somewhere, and if you allowed advance signs, you would be not allowing something that's very similar to that. And at the end of the day, okay, it's like, okay, we're just got to put the line somewhere.
Yeah.
Here are the rules. You may think it's silly, and it might be that we can't do it here.
Yeah.
But here are the rules, and you know them. And like you said, there's video of him doing all this.
And the Central Michigan game where it was the guy who was in the disguise, right? He had the sunglasses and a hat, and he had a goatee and everything. And they asked him about that. They're like, hey, and I guess he had like a friend that was part of the staff there at Central Michigan. And so he's there, or allegedly he's there, and they show him this picture, and like, well, what about this? And he holds it up to him, and he goes, this guy doesn't even look like me, and sort of a wry smile. And then they talk to Dave Portnoy because he's developed a relationship with Barstool. So he's been doing videos with Barstool. And Dave Portnoy goes, I know if he was there or not. He told me. He was there. It was him. It's like,
So he's
damn.
part of this, right? Was he part of the whistleblower? One of the whistleblowers?
I don't. Dave Portnoy was a huge Michigan fan.
Yeah.
So he was saying, he's done all this for Michigan. He'll have a job with Barstool for as long as he lives. Anything he wants, I'll pay him whatever he wants to be at Barstool. We won a national championship with this guy. But then they show the Zoom interview with the NCAA, which I think may be the first Zoom ever released publicly of the NCAA and one of their meetings and conversations with a coach or a player. And they ask him about Central Michigan. It's like, did you attend the Central Michigan game? And he goes, I don't recall attending any game at Central Michigan. Like, you don't recall? You don't. You memorized all of these signs that you said had nothing to do with videotaping.
Can't remember, though.
You memorized every single sign, but you don't remember if you went to a Central Michigan game
Kalamazoo or what,
on the
what was
sideline.
Central
Michigan on the sideline watching the game against, I think it was Michigan State, who they were going to play later on in the year. Advanced scouting for that. I don't really remember if that's the case. And everybody that was videotaping, I didn't ask them to do it. They just sent it to me randomly.
Right.
And I was spending all of this money. But Dan Wetzel is on there, and he said, he's like, yeah, we sent a Freedom of Information request to all these other schools across the country to see these assistant coaches and different tickets that are being bought. And it starts showing other universities and tickets that are being bought by assistants for other
all over the place, isn't it?
Conference games in the future. And he's like, does the NCAA really want to go down that route? They don't, because they don't need to anymore. Because now they're doing the signs. You can just radio him into the quarterback and the linebacker. You're not going to have to see those signs.
Connor Stalions,
like,
the Houston Astros of college football. They're changing the rules. What's that?
Is he the trash
He's
can?
the trash can. Like they now the
sort
pitch
of like,
com.
Right, but it was sort of like he was doing what it seems like everybody else was doing. Yeah. It's just
That's how it
somehow
usually
somebody did an independent investigation on their own and then gave it to the NCAA. And Connor Stalions and his lawyer's biggest beef was, it's not that he didn't do this. We're not saying he did this. It's that somehow his computer was hacked. And we want to find out if this was illegal. Was it Ohio State that they brought up in the investigative meeting? His lawyer was like, because if it was Ohio State, I mean, we got some issues here that maybe you guys should be looking into if there were some illegal activities that took place with acquiring this information and why they were doing this investigation behind the scenes and why the NCAA had this quick of an investigation because it was already prepackaged and given to them because there was an independent firm that was hired by somebody that the NCAA still doesn't know who hired him or why, that they gave the NCAA this information as to Michigan, and most people think it was Ohio State that did that. But
there's a reason why Bill Belichick had so many assistant coaches leave for so long and didn't have a problem, and it took till Eric Mangini leaving and blowing the whistle on them videotaping other teams.
I don't think they did justice to the Steve McNair one. Like Steve McNair, it's interesting if you didn't know sort of the history or some of the details of that with Steve McNair. It's only an hour long, and there are so many details from that investigation that weren't brought up. They leave you wondering, like, okay, maybe it wasn't a murder-suicide. Maybe this girl's boyfriend who gave her the gun, who was texting with her 200 times, and 20 minutes before the murder-suicide happened, that he lied about selling her the gun and then saying he didn't have the gun, then saying, yeah, I gave her the gun. Like, there's the life insurance policy. He was getting ready to get divorced from his wife, so there's allegations of she doesn't get any of the policy if he's dead and they're divorced. There's also business dealings that had falling outs with other people. There's also the point that it was a double tap in his chest and then one directly to his temple. Does a scorned lover shoot him twice in the chest and then put it to his temple to make sure that he doesn't survive? Or, like, is that what happens in a throw of passion, right?
I need to see that because I don't know much at all about his death.
But I would say for those that want as much information as possible, Fall of a Titan. It's the podcast series. It's 8 episodes. Fall of a Titan. It has so many details. It talks about how awful the Nashville police investigation was, how quickly they looked at it and said, murder-suicide, let's move on. And it has a lot of information. And I left the Fall of a Titan going, that was not a murder-suicide. There's something more going on here. I left the Untold with Steve McNair going, I have questions. I have questions. But Fall of a Titan, I'm like, yeah, this is so much more suspicious than just clean, concise, wrapped up, put a bow, murder-suicide. We all move on. Because there was a lot of things surrounding Steve McNair at that time when he ended up passing away. I also couldn't believe it was 2009. For some reason, in my mind, it was like 2002 or 3 or 4. Seems like it was long ago, much longer ago
Seems like
than
it's
that.
more recent than that. I can't believe it's been 15 years.
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, exactly. I can't believe it was like not last year. We'll take a timeout, come back, wrap up the show next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, hanging out with Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41, sports director. That's right. He's the sports director.
Sports guy.
Sports stuff.
You know what I did last night?
You hosted
sports stuff.
No, after that. It ended at 9:10. I ran down to my truck, and I drove to this station, and I did the 10 o'clock news.
No way.
Wow, you're a grinder.
Dude, look at you, man. You know what? You don't get to that position by half-assing things. He full-assed.
I would be upset, but it was the sports director who kind of set the schedule, and I was the only option.
Oh.
So
wait a minute, aren't you the sports director?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can't be upset. I could just be at myself.
Oh, I cannot. Why does he always do this to me? Oh, you start slapping yourself.
Horrible bosses. 3.
Yes.
Who did this? A madman, Your Honor. A desperate fool at the end of his pitiful rope. Oh, that's 6'2", big teeth, kind of gangly. That was you being mad at yourself.
Right,
yes.
Yeah.
Who did this? It was me. Thank you, Mick. We'll see you on Friday.
See you on Friday. Are we going to do Food
We're
Friday?
going to do
this
Food
time?
Friday.
Okay,
Yep,
let's go.
Food Friday.
Appreciate
We're going to call it Food Friday. I'm going to go ahead and count that as my ZOU.
Might as well.
On the Food Friday.
Might as well.
We'll do that.
One of them. Count it as one of them.
I only have one left.
What are you
Yay.
getting me?
A punch in the face.
Hey.
Yep.
Knuckle sandwich.
Give it
I
away
like
for
punch.
free.